Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow is underway on this Thursday edition. Glad you're with us here on the OutKick Network, which includes the YouTube channel you may be watching live. We hope you'll hit subscribe. If you visit there, search out OutKick. Hit the subscribe button, pound the thumbs up, and you can join Chad in the chat right there. And if you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you very much. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Exciting day.
That's right.
Thursday. Getting close to the end of the week.
I know. We're almost there.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
We do. We've got
a lot of things I feel very strongly about we're going to be talking about today.
Michael McKenry will join us coming up in 20 minutes. We'll begin with the headlines in just a moment and why we're diving in straight ahead with Major League Baseball. We've got David Nuno, who is the host of TexAgs Radio, knower of all things SEC. We'll talk some ball with David later this hour. Plus, Armando Salguero also does that with us. He covers the NFL for OutKick.com. Chad, I know you've finally watched Swamp Kings. That will be your review of Episode 1. Maybe a bit of a twist of what I would expect from you on
I don't know about
expectation.
That.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to completely reset expectations.
Okay.
Based on what we've discussed. But, I mean, I think that I'll say something about it a little bit different than you would have expected. But I don't want to spoil my full review, again, of Episode 1. I'm going to try to get through all 4 of these. But I watched the first one, and I have some strong thoughts on Untold Swamp Kings.
Chad, you had strong thoughts on the Angels as an organization going down in history for being one of the worst when it comes to decisions going all in, not making the playoffs, not deciding to trade Ohtani. And now Ohtani, who left the game yesterday with arm fatigue, he is now suffering from an elbow tear, and he's done pitching for the rest of the season, for the remainder of the season. It was a doubleheader yesterday. Ohtani actually requested and really demanded that he was going to stay in for the second game after suffering this injury, and he was the DH. He went 1 for 5 from the plate, but remained in on the doubleheader for the day. This could lead to Tommy John surgery. He's already had that one time in the right elbow, same elbow in 2018. And, of course, this does lead to a free agency frenzy for him. And now it could affect the bottom line. Some are saying by upwards of $100 million on the free agent market. And I wonder, does the drop in price, and again, there will be an overspend here for him. Does the drop in price put the Angels in the mix more so than not, because it's not going to be, if it's accurate, $100 million more than whatever the projection was?
Maybe. I mean, I think it probably puts more teams in play for Ohtani if they want to take the chance.
This just sucks.
And you're also taking a huge chance that, he comes back after a second Tommy John.
I know.
Is what it would take. I mean, that's what it's going to take based on the severity of it, but it sounds like any tear to the UCL, you're more than likely going to have to go through Tommy John. First surgery went down in 2018. Mm-hmm. Clearly, he came back fine from that one, and he's pitched well the last few years. So he could come back after a year off of pitching. He could still hit and be a good pitcher again, but you're still taking a risk that that's going to be the case. We've seen plenty of pitchers come back from these and be fine, and we've seen other pitchers that have been injured this way or other ways that have not been the same ever since. This was a story that just sucked for the Angels, and now it sucks for all of us. The Angels are the one who decided to go for it, and then they promptly lost 7 straight games, starting with the trade deadline, and they're out of the race. And now, of course, that sucks for that team and their fans, but now losing Ohtani and the ability for us to watch him pitch, and now what he's going to lose in free agency, this is just a story that sucks all around at this point. The Angels, I mean, I come off a day yesterday where I talk about them as one of the biggest failures in the history of sport, and I agree. It's hard to even say that now based on all of this, because it sucks all around to not have Ohtani for baseball fans, for the team, for everyone, and now the loss in value for him moving forward. Not that he's going to be crying poor anytime soon. He's still going to sign a huge contract.
It was upwards of $600 million is the estimate. If some of these other owners have anything to do with it, who knows where the bidding goes. It's the most anticipated free agent frenzy that we've ever seen. If you want to compare it to what we saw from Brady, what we saw from LeBron, this is more based on the ownerships that will be placing bids and still will. And just to add insult to injury, literally and figuratively, Mike Trout, in his first game back after, 7 weeks with the wrist problem, just tried to swing the bat during the game and just simply said it did not go well. It did not feel well. So he's back on the injured list. The hope is, in the same presser where they're discussing Ohtani, they're discussing Trout, and they're saying the hope is he will return at some point this season. But at this point, how do you feel if you're the front office after making the moves, and then after you made the moves, you lose 7 straight, and now you end up with the 2 guys that you were buying in and trying to win with for the first time, trying to go to the postseason with this duo, and now they are on the injury list. And from the pitching perspective, we're not going to see Ohtani for the rest of the year.
It's as if sucks. Mike Trout just sort of poked his head out of the clubhouse, decided to put the uniform on and go out and play and look around and say, I don't like it here. I'd like to go home now. And then said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and check out. Again, the swing doesn't feel right, and checked out. They were a game and a half out of the last playoff spot, the wild card spot at the trade deadline.
3 games.
Was it 3 games at that point? Yep. So 3 games out. And they decide to stick with their team and even add guys. And the thought was, we've got Ohtani. We're going to add a couple pieces. We're right there.
Let's actually go for it.
Mike Trout's coming back.
Yeah.
So we're going to go on a win streak here. We're going to win more than we lose at least. Yep. Stay right there in the thick of it for the wild card. Trout's going to come back, give us a boost. We're going to get into the postseason. We can go on a run with these guys. And now you are down Ohtani. And the day Mike Trout tries to come back, swing doesn't feel right, and he's out also. Terrible news all around for the Angels.
A little pick-me-up for the New York Yankees. After Brian Cashman discussed with reporters prior to the game of just a complete disaster of a season, you have Aaron Judge go out and hit his first 3-run homer in his career. I never would have guessed that. You've got then you have the deal with the Yankees winning 9-1. They survived the 10-game skid, and that would have been for the first time since 1913. So at least for one night in the Bronx, Chad, Judge is smiling. All rise.
All rise indeed.
Still a disaster.
Total disaster. Oftentimes, I think disaster is an overused descriptor of what's going on. Brian Cashman was spot on when he used that word to describe this Yankee season.
And he was spot on when he said, no, it's not just Aaron Boone. We are both going to be evaluated for this disaster.
Yeah.
There will be a
I like that accountability.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, right? Because how many years now is this in a row where Cashman's been that guy that's been discussed, and he's always survived?
Well, Curt Schilling came on with us and said it's the players' fault. The players should feel bad because they're the ones who's going to lose Aaron Boone's job for him with how poorly they play. They just haven't lived up to what they should be. They have not lived up to their own standard. They have not lived up to their own talent level. They certainly haven't lived up to their pay level, their salary structure. The same can be said for the crosstown New York Mets this season. It's been a disastrous season of baseball for both New York teams, and one night over the Washington Nationals because Aaron Judge hits 3 home runs certainly is not going to do anything. All it does is you see a superstar single-handedly end a long losing streak for a team because he hits 3 home runs. 3
homers. And by the way, Chad, the celebration was far better for the Washington Commanders' preseason victory, more than the Yankees ending the skid.
Well, it was more important because, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest.
At least this one counted.
The Yankees, well, I mean, it counts in that they ended a losing streak, but they're not going anywhere this season. So it's all but over for them. The Washington Commanders, meanwhile, Hutton, on the horizon are just great things with Sam Howell. This is going to either be seen as a punchline for the time the Commanders overly celebrated a preseason win, or it's going to be seen in the untold Washington Commanders story years from now when it's a 5-part miniseries documentary. They're going to go back and say, this right here was the start.
Josh Harris ownership group.
When this swolled up kicker with tattoos, I don't even know his name, kicked it through the uprights to beat the Ravens. I think it was something like that. to beat the Ravens, this was the start of greatness of the Washington Commanders dynasty.
Or that loss sent the Ravens into a skid that they never climbed out of.
Could be part of the untold Ravens story.
Their 24-game losing streak.
The beginning of the end.
Yeah, that's right.
Beginning of the end is when they could not secure that winning streak in the preseason.
If Jonathan Taylor wants the nightmare to end in Indianapolis, the Colts have given him a deadline. And it's not by coincidence that the deadline is August 29th, because August 29th is the deadline for roster cuts in the NFL. You got to go from 91 down to 53. And it's important in regards to Taylor, because if he wants to seek a trade and they've granted him permission, well, he's on the physically unable to perform list. And the Colts, if he's going to be on PUP, if he goes into week one, if he goes into week one past the deadline and doesn't pass the physical with Indy and doesn't have a trade set up that Indy's willing to accept, well, he's mandatory. He's sent on a mandatory list of PUP for the first 4 weeks of the season. So that slows the whole transition down if you are trying to get the trade done in a timely manner. On top of that, you need to know whether or not you're going to have Jonathan Taylor in the mix for your roster. Deadlines tend to lead to action, but so does the cut down deadline. And that also is why Trey Lance, who is rumored to be on the trading block, and he has been even since the NFL draft. John Lynch told KNBR earlier today, well, the most likely scenario is he's going to be on the roster as the number 3 QB when we start the season. But keep in mind that key part of that quote, most likely remains on the roster. That's the initial 53 is what he's referring to, because the teams that maybe inquired about him during the draft, that reports were Minnesota was one of those. Well, at this point, don't you just wait and see if San Francisco cuts him? And if they cut him, then you don't have to give up literally anything, even if you wanted to pick up the salary for the season on waivers. So, again, Chad, it's a bad situation there where he's the number 3 quarterback, but he's not on that roster for very long. He left the facility yesterday, upset. Lynch handled it much better than Jim Irsay handled it in Indianapolis, where Lynch is on the radio today saying, he handled it like a true pro. Of course, it was a punch in the gut whenever Shanahan informed him that Darnold was going to be the number 2 quarterback going in. But Shanahan also said the expectation is that Trey Lance will play tomorrow. Trey Lance will play in the final preseason game. They plan to give the starting reps to Darnold, and then the expectation is Trey Lance is going to be in the game prior to handing things over to Allen. Whether or not we see that, we'll find out. But they're playing this, I think, in an honest manner. They're not lying when they say most likely he's on the roster, but that doesn't mean for very long. That means the initial 53 when they make the cuts on Tuesday.
Well, and the reports, they shopped him all offseason, and there was no great offer. Well, of course not. Because if you're by taking the steps to shop him, what you're announcing is we greatly overvalued his potential when we traded up to draft him. He's not what we thought. And now we've got Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, who we value more than this guy. Now, what will you give us in return for him? And it goes back to the reason you just said. The odds are he's probably going to get cut at this point. So why would you want to give anything up if you're another team that may even have the slightest interest in Trey Lance as a backup at this point in time? You're not going to give much up for that. With Jonathan Taylor, I don't know what NFLanalysis.net is exactly, but they have the report through a source that the Eagles are the most aggressive in trade talks for Jonathan Taylor.
The Miami Herald has also reported that the Dolphins are in on the mix for Taylor as well. Armando will have the very latest there for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, boy, that's a cheat code for the Eagles. Yeah. If they pull that off. That's one that immediately caught my eye, and I thought, man, the NFC champs get a lot better because Jonathan Taylor's still really good.
Oh, he's 24 years old, and
he's in his prime.
A year ago he averaged 5.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
In that offense, look out.
But value-wise, like what type of contract is going to get it done in return for Indianapolis instead of just holding on and calling his bluff and keeping on PUP? That's another part of this wrinkle is there is a little bit of leverage on behalf of the Colts because if they don't trade him, he sits out for a month anyway on PUP. And then you can finally trade him down the line, which, again, it doesn't really help Taylor either to go out and have a 2,000-yard season. It's not like he's going to get paid more. He's just going to get tagged again or tagged for the first time on what's the final year of his contract. Chad, the Arizona Cardinals, there was a terrible first-round pick in Trey Lance for the San Francisco 49ers. The Cardinals have traded their former first-round pick from 2020, Isiah Simmons, who was he came into the league, he was listed as a safety / linebacker / any position you wanted, rover. Never lived up to anything close to expectation or hype. They just wanted production, and they didn't even see production from Isiah Simmons. He's traded to the Giants for a 7th-round pick, where instead of potential, now they just hope for a little production on the back end of a roster if you're the G-men. But Arizona's selling. They sell Isiah Simmons. They've also traded away Josh Jones, an offensive tackle that started 11 games for the franchise last season.
Will Isiah Simmons have his Cordero Patterson moment? Another guy who was positionless, who did some good things but had to be moved around all the time until Atlanta got a hold of him and said, oh, he's a running back. And he's done pretty well as a running back only. Isiah Simmons, someone's got to find a position for him. Maybe the Giants know exactly
Wink Martindale may be
what
able to
he is and what he's going to do. That's the hope.
What's next for Ohtani, and what's next for the Baltimore Orioles when their owner can't even let them win? That's next.
He has no empathy, heavy dementia, doesn't even know where the hell he is, and thinks the whole world revolves around him. He's literally telling people who lost their loved ones, who lost their homes, who lost their property, who lost their businesses about a 20-minute kitchen fire. That's a kitchen fire. And this jackass goes on and on and on about a kitchen fire. It wasn't he almost lost his home. I mean, do a little research. A kitchen fire. That's all it is. And this guy has the audacity to go in front of people who lost their island, their city, their homes, their livelihoods, their relatives, and discuss himself. And I can't even, I'm speechless. Every time I see it, I get so pissed off, I can't even tell you. I mean, stupid and arrogant are the worst two things a people can have. If you're smart and you're arrogant, you at least know you're arrogant. If you're stupid, like the dude started out last in his class in everything he's ever been. Now let's get that. The dude cheated on his first wife. The dude is stupid. And stupid and arrogant is no way to go through life. It's the deadliest combination. Deadly. Couldn't be a worse combination. And this guy's got it. He's so arrogant and he's so stupid and he's so not out here. And we got to listen to it. We seriously have to listen to this. I thought there was nobody worse that I ever wanted to listen to than George W. Bush. And then Obama came along with his blah, 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 stupid ass stuff. I mean, his idiotic, trying to be on the wall, every wall, trying to be smarter than he is, blah, 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 blah. And now we got this. This is just embarrassing. This just make you mad. This make you mad, and you got to say to yourself, hold the phone, hang on here. This is horrible. This is a horrible human being speaking to people that have lost everything, and this guy is talking about himself, comparing himself. He was so stupid, he stepped off a curb. Now, we're not going to show you the video. He stepped off a curb in front of firefighters in Lahaina, after the biggest wildfire in American history, and jokingly said, oh, the ground's hot. Well, no kidding. They just had the biggest wildfire in American history, you idiot. And he thinks he's being clever, and people guffaw. It's like Peyton Manning. He said, huh. He said, I can't believe that guy's so funny. It is amazing to me. It is astounding to me It angers me to no end. This jackass, this arrogant fool gets up there and represents us, and he don't give a rat's double about you or me. Not even kinda. Not even sorta. He don't care about you, me. If he can't promote it, if he can't profit off it, he don't care. It's a career politician, hasn't done a damn thing in his life. I mean, you're sitting there and you've lost everything that you have, and this guy's telling you about, oh, I don't know, a little kitchen fire. Really?
Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Michael McKenry joins us. Plenty to discuss across Major League Baseball. Things heating up for the playoff race. Not so much for the Angels. The Fort joins us. Michael, how are you, man?
I'm kind of sad.
Yeah.
You know, you think about
bummer.
two of the greatest players of all time, you know, being together for so long, and it never just comes together. There was always some, whether it was an outside factor or an inside factor, it just did never come together. You would think, you know, putting a Scotty and Jordan together in baseball would work. It just didn't.
Yeah, and you say sad. I say it's a bummer, but I was bummed that they had the 7-game losing skid after the trade deadline. You know, they bought in, and the results were that this was what's going to happen anyway. And now we don't even get to see the guy, you know, go for what was an amazing finish to an amazing season. And on top of that, with Tommy John potentially on the way for a second time for him, what does this do in terms of the free agent frenzy that is expected for him that will still be there? But what does it affect in terms of the type of dollars that were reported compared to what may be out there now?
I still think there's going to be a huge bidding war, and there's going to be more money thrown around at him than ever before. He's still young enough to recover from it. That maybe it's just a weird complication. It's a, you know, partial tear, not a full tear. Maybe they do some alternative therapies. There's a lot of good things happening when it comes to, you know, Tommy John and how fast you can get back. We just had a guy, Vince Velasquez, they're reporting that he's probably going to return in a year, where, you know, you're used to 14, 15, 16 months. So you still have a great hitter. He may opt to, you know, try to fix it naturally, still be a hitter. So he's still a $40 million player when you look at him as just a hitter. He's an $80 million player, possibly, if you look at him as both. So he's not superhuman in two ways now, just one. So he's still a really, really good player.
Michael McKenry joins us, a former Major League catcher. I want to get your opinion on this, because the last doubleheader I recall was the day that they announced they weren't planning on trading him. And he threw like a 2-hitter complete game or something. And then he turned around the doubleheader and DH'd and hit like 2 homers or something in that on that doubleheader. He still hit DH yesterday too. He demanded to stay in the lineup. You've seen the pure exhaustion of a pitcher going through a complete game performance. To know that Ohtani's doing it and then turning around and playing the same day and then performing at the plate the way he has, and then after getting hurt, demanding that he still is the DH, even though he went 1 for 5, it still speaks to the player and the fact that he's not tapping out.
You're exactly right. And guys, I don't think we're talking about it enough across the league that Tommy John injury this year is up 45%. You know, they predicted this with the pitch clock and everything else, that these guys had not been training for this. They're not ready for this. And also, like, there's a lot more at stake at the big league level. So yeah, they're doing it in the minor leagues. That's always the argument they should be used to when they get up here. But the reality of it is when you get up here, they don't treat the guys like they're minor leaguers. They have to warm up 3 days in a row and not pitch and then pitch on that 4th day. They would never do that in the minor leagues. They protect those guys. They put them in this little shell or bubble and don't allow them to do things that they're going to do in the big leagues. So that's one. And then two, that speaks to his character. I mean, you can just go around and look at some of the pictures online at Ohtani, see the joy he has playing the game. He wants to be out there. And something to be looked at is when he had that blister, he was pitching against the Pirates and he just was not the same. And when you have some element that's maybe making you do things differently, that's when you put more pressure on that UCL or your labrum or your rotator cuff. It's exactly why Tyler Matzik ended up having Tommy John, because he was pitching hurt, and you try to do some things different. Your body's not moving right, and you put all that pressure or stress on that elbow, and that's probably what happened. That's all fixable. He can learn from it, grow from it, but knowing he wanted to be out on the field, I bet he's been playing through a lot, throughout the year, trying to chase winning a playoff game.
And Trout's been trying to get back into the lineup. He does. Help me with this, though. So he's got the wrist issue. He comes back, and then the attempts to swing during the game didn't go well. Did it go well in the cage prior to the game? Like, how does that happen? And I guess it felt fine to a point, and then it didn't.
It was a really aggressive approach. I mean, when it comes to the hamate, guys usually come back and they don't have any pop. They don't have the bat speed that they thought they should have. So I'm sure he's trying to come back and be Mike Trout. He's not gonna be probably right at first. And, taking that swing, that fear in a game is still there, because the last swing he took in a game, he fouled it off and he, broke his handmate. So, I mean, that's got to be something that leaves the subconscious first. And then maybe that, good swing comes back, the power comes back, but you've got to think about all these elements that certain guys have had, when they have that handmate problem. It's a little bit of a mess. He may have to do some things in the offseason and change the knob he uses, change the thickness of his handle, just to try to combat that feeling.
Michael, have you had a chance to watch any of the Little League World Series at all since it's been happening?
Absolutely. Did you see that little kid squat really low for Mexico?
Yeah.
Trying to outstanding. The personalities are outstanding.
And it was still a streak. Still a strike.
It was. Yeah. It's like the Major League Zone.
Well, I asked because I'm blown away with the coaching at this level and how good these guys are. Last night's a great example. I'm watching the team from Nolensville, Tennessee, play California, and they run a play with 2 outs, runners on first and third, where the kid at first takes off for second and deliberately acts like he trips and falls to bait the catcher to throwing to first. And the guy, as he falls, is getting back up, their fastest runner, and taking off to second, knowing if the throw comes. And then right as the throw is made, of course, the guy from third is running home, and he slides in safe on a baited throw play. The guys are shortening their swing, and you could all the managers are mic'd up. So he's telling them, don't swing so hard, shorten it up. Don't we want to score this run from third? You just need to hit the ball to the right side of the infield. The kid does it after that. I say that, Michael, to say, man, the game's in good hands. I know you know a lot of the guys with the USA Baseball that are coaching, but I'm blown away by the acumen of the coaches at this level and what the kids are able to pull off.
And, I mean, you can't explain how bad travel ball is at times and how pure Little League. And they have the Pony League here in Pennsylvania. You have the Cal Ripken World Series. When you're playing for something, especially when you're playing for your hometown or your actual country, it means a lot more. And I think that for these kids, when they go to practice, they look at ways that they could win, how they could maybe come together as a team. It's completely different than being a showcase pony, going to this tournament and that tournament, chasing extra velocity, trying to run a better 10, 20, or 60-yard dash, whatever it is, and then bragging about it when you're not playing. You're not playing with the team, and that ultimately is all that matters. How do you play when the lights come on in front of your friends, your family, and your teammates around them? Are you a guy that's going to stand with them or just try to stand apart? And in this Little League World Series, from coaches down, it always starts at the top. It's a servant leadership mentality. These guys do a great job. They pour into them because it means something. I think that's something we need to remember because it's so pure. We saw it in the World Baseball Classic. Speaking of Ohtani, how cool that was and the energy. That was that little kid coming out and all those excellent players. You just hope they don't lose it as they go forward.
So sticking in your state for baseball, the Phillies versus
Tennessee's my state, Chad.
That's good. Sorry. Well, your current state, right? With Pittsburgh. Okay. So the Phillies versus the Braves. And the approach, which is, they've earned this approach right now. What I mean by that is The Phillies haven't been that good a lot of the year. They're coming alive now, but they're still fighting to ensure that they're going to have a wild card spot, which they probably will. The Braves have been coasting for a while because their record is so good, and they're probably going to run away with the division. But as you get now into the dog days of August into September, and you haven't had a lot of high leverage at-bats or games if you're the Braves versus the Phillies, who are going to be conditioned to have more pressure moments going into the postseason, does that possibly line up for a run that we saw from the Phillies last year as opposed to the Braves, where the Phillies beat them in the playoff series?
No question. Absolutely no question. You have to be on your toes if you're the Braves and understand that the Phillies did something really special last year. And I'm going to go back to when Trey Turner got a standing ovation walking to the plate hitting 230. Since that moment, he's hitting 380. He's hitting homers. He's stealing bases. He's playing excellent defense. Bryce Harper's power's going up. So if you're a Brave, and I know a bunch of those guys, they were just here, that entire coaching staff, I love to pieces. A lot of really good friends over there. They have their eye on the ball. But if they let it slip, the Phillies have their hair on fire. So you got to be really, really careful that you don't fall complacent, even talk about how good you are. You just focus on the goal, try to win another World Series because you are the team to beat. And when you're that team, everyone's coming out to get you, and you have everything to lose when no one else does.
Michael McKenry, our guest here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on the OutKick Network. You had the Orioles in the World Series. Do you still have the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series, given the fact that John Angelos is already admitting that despite our success right now, we're not going to be able to keep these guys. We're going to be sellers soon if we don't drastically raise prices. What do you make of ownership not being able to keep their mouth shut and just let the locker room and the clubhouse win?
I'll tell you what, Hud, he better have the best two-strike approach on the planet. First with the broadcaster, now saying that. You don't say things like that. Even if you really mean that because you're a businessman, you don't see the writing on the wall that you have a great group of humans together that are playing phenomenal. You just can't do that. And if you want to sign them now. Give them more money than they deserve now, so maybe they want to stay around with all their buddies. I mean, there's a lot of people that will take less money for a great circumstance in this game or more time. If you sign the right human beings, you're going to have a winning team for a long time. I'm pretty sure we just talked about the team that's doing that flawlessly right now in Atlanta. Almost every guy they've signed for undervalue because they bet on that guy. Tyler Matzik, one of my really good friends, signed a 2-year deal right after he had Tommy John. How do you think that made him feel, a guy that's had the yips and felt like he was nothing to people before? It made him feel like he was invincible. You mean you're going to give me $5 million to rehab? You kidding me? Sure, let's go. And he's going to fight and fight to get into the playoffs and pitch. That's the guys you want to have on your team. They have a lot of those guys. They better hold on to them.
I know it's a Hollywood script, but can the major league approach work for the Baltimore Orioles? Because in that movie, they banded against their owner in Rachel Phelps, who was doing everything against them. Is there a world where if you're a Baltimore Oriole right now, you're internally in that clubhouse saying, screw this guy. Let's go prove everyone wrong and just win the World Series this year and let the future be the future and not worry about it. Can it be a rallying cry even though it's your boss? That's the problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In short spurts. Absolutely. I mean, obviously they have all the control. They can move pieces of the puzzle, but when you think about year to year, there's no question. You can fight against the coaching staff. You can fight against the front office. It's been done. I've been a part of teams that it's been done on, and we've taken a huge left and just ran. And it was because there was a disconnect, and that disconnect can either make you fumble and crumble, or it can make you rise and do something that's really special. But you have to have people that are willing to, come together, have that one heartbeat and take a step forward against maybe something that's really uncomfortable and could backfire. So I think yes, and I think they will.
You mentioned the standing ovation in Philly. Is that all the Yankees would have needed with their lineup, just a standing ovation as they went to the plate?
No, it's New York. Completely different. Completely different. Yeah, I mean, they're so hard. I mean, if you do something wrong one week and then the next week you're great, it's just top of the mountain, fall, top of the mountain, fall. I mean, it's kind of remarkable. I think if they would just, take a little playbook from Philly, I think it would have really, really helped them, because I've seen a lot of guys leave there and never want to go back, guys that have no intention to sign there, even with way more money, because it is a very tough place to play, either the Yankees or the Mets. It's a tough place.
How bad is Angel Hernandez at his job?
Well, grading wise, he's one of the worst. So I don't even have to speculate. He's a nice guy, but he's no angel when he calls balls and strikes. That's for sure. So he's a guy that's really.
Well, it just seems like there's always something. There's always something very visible that's awful that everyone's talking about with him. I don't know if we're picking on him because of the lawsuit and everything, but he always seems to be in the middle of something.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest issue. I mean, I think if you're an umpire, you'd never want to be seen. You want to be like an offensive lineman where the quarterback's taking you to dinner and buying you nice things, but nobody knows you exist. You had a great 12-year career. You go home, you buy a beach house, and it's great. That's what those guys should focus on. Instead, a lot of times they want to bring themselves into the game and say, hey, I'm here. It's my game. You beat it, nerd. You beat it, nerd. It's my ball and strike, period. Or it's my out and safe call. And it's not the way it should be. I believe they have great intentions. They have the hardest job on the planet, but they should definitely try to be completely transparent or translucent where they can't be seen.
Michael McKenry, always great to chat with the Fort. Michael McKenry here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Great to have you on, man. Appreciate the short notice visit and always enjoyed your perspective as usual.
Hey, anytime, guys. Love coming on with you. You guys are the best. Keep it up.
Thanks, Fort.
Same to
You're
you.
the man.
There he is, Michael McKenry.
The Rachel Phelps approach.
How dare you say he's in a state other than Tennessee?
Sorry about that.
His state.
His state is Tennessee. His adopted state, I should have said.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Chad, we head down to Texas, from Tennessee to Texas. David Nuno joins us, host of Texas Radio. A lot to discuss in College Station and across the SEC. The top headlines there are next.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Oh, Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one. I have no idea. Tallahassee.
No,
that's
Florida.
Yeah.
That's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know the capital of Tennessee? What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
Sad.
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50,
That's true, yes.
because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2,
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress?
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys. How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question. So.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that.
1777.
After that.
1789.
Before that.
1784.
After that.
1785.
After that.
1786.
After that.
1777.
After that. You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail. So. Uh-oh.
Withrow, you feeling a little thirsty? 6th and Peabody, Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine.
'Tis the season to feel thirsty because the need to be hydrated is fierce right now.
Feels like
because
temp
of this
here is
heat
108
and humidity.
degrees.
It is very warm. Got in my vehicle yesterday, 109 degrees was the reading after I started the engine up. So it's a little bit warm.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hot in Texas as well.
Oh, yeah.
Always plenty of football discussion in College Station. David Nuno does that each and every day, Texags Radio. Tremendous job there. And the site, texags.com. David, appreciate the time, man, and hope things are well.
Hey, guys, I think you have it pretty easy. I got in my car the other day. It was 114 degrees.
Casual
So,
fun.
I mean, the 109. Yeah, I'm just saying. And by the way, it's weird being on the show that I use as show prep. So thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Absolutely, yeah. No, so I would
Thank you,
say
Nuno.
normally when someone says, oh, it's 114, that's usually someone like in the desert, out west, and it's different. But I can't even say, well, what about the humidity to David? Because the humidity's worse there than maybe here even. That's really bad.
I have maintained this.
I've got nothing on them with the heat.
You watch the weather, and it's 98 degrees, but the feels like temperature is 108. I say the temperature is 108 if it feels like it's 108. What do you think?
100%. I went to the Aggie soccer game the other day. I was doing a little color commentating. It was 114 degrees on the field. And I felt every bit of that, no doubt. I don't care what it feels like. I mean, it was atrocious. I haven't sweat that much through a shirt in a long time.
If it's very simple. If you just combine like the air pressure, the humidity, and the temperature, you come up with a feels like, and then that becomes the new standard in America.
I think that should be the standard
We
reading.
do everything else different in America when it comes to the metric system and everything else. Why not make the temperature the feels like temperature also?
To me, it's common sense. What does it feel like? Oh, then that's the temp.
I feel like we're in an episode of Seinfeld right now, too.
Guys, let me go on a little rant that I did on the show the other day, but I just wanted your opinion on this.
Okay.
I did local news before I got to Texags, and I remember them telling us, well, local sports, people can get it on their phones. They don't really need it like they used to. You get freaking weather on your phone, too, and that leads every newscast. I think us sports guys need a little bit more top billing.
That's a great point. I mean, you can get everything on your phone now. That could be the argument against anything. Why televise sports even? Why watch it live? I can get on my phone also. You can make that argument about everything. It's a good point.
Hey, top billing was Texas A&M a year ago. What's the buzz like this year for the Aggies?
Show me. And Billy Lucci, our co-owner and executive editor and good friend, he gives me a hard time for saying it out loud a lot because I do say it. I want you guys to show me everything that we think about this team. I have a lot of reasons for optimism. I understand the reasons for pessimism and the questions out there. I get it. I'm at a point with this team is I believe they have the right quarterback for the future, even though he hasn't been named yet. I believe that they have the right pieces in place. I think they have a really good coaching staff, guys. Regardless of what people think of Jimbo, throughout his career, he's had an excellent career. Really only 2 bad seasons that entire time. There was an ascension for a little bit, and then the drop-off in 2021 when Haynes King went down early, and then the super cliff drop-off last year. I have questions, but I want them to prove it to me, and I think fans feel that same way. But there is optimism, too, because for some reason this program, when they fly under the radar, and they're not under the radar with headlines, but nobody really thinks that they're going to compete top billing in the West, let's say. that's when they do their best. And I think why not this year? Because there are questions all around the West, really questions outside of Georgia. And even Georgia's got some questions just because we haven't seen Carson Beck do it at this level yet.
What has the dynamic been like between Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino?
Well, a lot of people made so much about the SEC media days, the way Jimbo initially answered those questions, and he opened himself up for that. I get that totally. But in my opinion, Jimbo answers questions the way he thinks, right? Like, it's always been a collaboration between me and the coaches. We always go back and forth. He doesn't hire Bobby Petrino, a guy with that many skins on the wall, a guy who is such an offensive genius, without thinking this guy can lead my offense. I used this comparison before, and it may not be good to you guys, but you guys do your own show prep, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But there's certain things about the show that I let others do because, like, they can get it done and I can focus on the content. But when I don't trust that guy, it's all me, 100% me. And I kind of feel that way with Jimbo in the offense. I believe he does trust Bobby. And if you listen to Bobby Petrino's his press conference, he said all the right things. We'll see how he answers those questions in October when they've had some, adversity, because they will face adversity at some point. But right now he's saying he's the boss. I'm coaching offense. Let's go. And it appears when you go to practices, they get along. Bobby's in complete control of that offense. And then Jimbo's being Jimbo.
How is A&M's recruiting infrastructure now? They had that all-time great class, and there was a lot of attrition with that class. They had the NIL collective that was collaborating with the school that they had to disband because of the possibility of the nonprofit status going away, David. So now that all that's happened, do you feel like there's been a course correction in how A&M is going about it? Still obviously a place that can get top players.
Well, look at Jimbo as a recruiter his whole career. I mean, he's known for top 10 classes. He's known for top 3 classes. We always bring up that 22 class because of it just being such an amazing class. But the stat is, if you just look at the Houston class alone that he recruited, that would have been a top 12 class in the country. So how are they recruiting? It all comes down to winning, in my opinion. They have the facilities, they have the infrastructure, they have the fan support. A&M is a destination place for Texas high school football athletes to come to and around the country. I mean, you look at how he's done in New Jersey and Philadelphia and California, now Seattle, Washington. He's done a wonderful job in those areas. To me, it all boils down to, can they win some games? Last year, they didn't win, so they didn't have a top 10 recruiting class. But other than that, Jimbo's been routinely 3, 5, 7, and he even had that 1. They're still looking for a recruiting director, but a lot of the pieces were in place already. And they have some momentum, guys. Like, look, there's other schools, too, that have not been as successful. Let's not forget the University of Texas and Texas A&M have the same record combined the last couple of years. And Texas does really well recruiting. They've got a brand. I get all that. But it comes down to the winning, the facilities, and belief. And I think they were able to sell belief after last year with the hiring of Bobby Petrino and obviously the pieces in place. Because if you look at the guys that left, they really weren't starters. And a lot of the guys that left are no longer where they started.
TexAgs.com, the website. You can check out TexAgs Radio streaming daily on YouTube. David Nuno is the host. Are you more confident in what you know about LSU or Alabama right now?
I am more confident I think I'm more confident in LSU. I am not confident about their secondary, and that could be a really big problem. I think the whole thing with Bama is Bama's bad year is 10-2, right? Like,
right.
I could only wish for that, right? Yeah. So I could only wish for that kind of good year as opposed to a bad year.
Right.
So, but there are legit questions about the quarterback spot. I mean, Jalen Milroe, we saw him firsthand. He did beat Texas A&M. He struggled in that game. He is not Bryce Young. We look at Alabama last year and how many games came down to the last play, how many games came down to the last couple of minutes. So he's not there. Will Anderson's not there. They've got a bunch of other 5-stars. Those guys usually set them up for great success. But I am curious about the quarterback spot. How can you not be? How do you bring in Tyler Buchner, who's not going to be the starter, in my opinion, right after spring ball, and not say you have some questions? So I think I have less questions about LSU because of the structure that they have, building on the momentum that they had last year. But you have to have some questions on the defensive side because, Mason Smith is going to be back, it looks like, other than that first game. But the secondary's got some questions. Denver Harris, who was at A&M, goes over there. Not only does he get into a little bit of trouble, but he wasn't even, weeks before that, wasn't starting. He was second or third team at that time as well. So I do have questions about LSU. I have questions about a lot of teams in the SEC, but I think the bigger question is about Bama just because of their quarterback. But regardless, I still expect them to be 1 or 2.
Are we sleeping on Arkansas a little bit? Just given KJ Jefferson at quarterback, Rocket Sanders at running back, as good a duo at those two positions that you're going to find in the country, are we sleeping on Arkansas a bit, or are they right where they should be preseason?
I think they are right where they should be because I think Rocket and KJ are such X factors that they should. But A&M has beat them 10 out of 11 years. And they got a new offensive line. They got some questions on their defense as well. Would I be surprised if Arkansas is in the mix for that third spot? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all because you've got such a dynamic quarterback. But I still think they need to prove it to me. You know, with A&M having all the issues that they had last year, that was a game that Arkansas had a chance to knock out, and KJ had that fumble, and, the rest of that play got A&M back into it. Tyreek Chappelle picks it up, and then Damani Richardson scores the touchdown, puts A&M back in the game. They're able to survive and win after Arkansas missed field goal. Look, I think they're really good. I think everybody in the SEC West has these questions, guys. Like when you look at Auburn, they should be better because all these transfers that they came in, you've got Hugh Freeze and what he can do in year one. But look at Mississippi State. They bring back a lot of production. People forget about Will Rogers being as good as he is, but Mike Leach is no longer there. So there's like, if the offense is going to be good enough, he's going to be under center a lot more. So I understand the questions, but Arkansas to me is in that tier right with A&M. I put A&M slightly above because of the talent, but you can't argue with the production that Sam Pittman's been able to do there.
Surprise team for you in the SEC?
Surprise team in the SEC. I think Kentucky is going to finish second in the East.
Chad mentioned them a couple of weeks ago too, as someone that they're a lot like A&M. We're not talking about them like we were last year, for instance.
Well, I mean, they get Ray Davis, who rushed for over 100 yards against them, rushed for over 1,000 yards at Vanderbilt. Devin Leary, if he doesn't get hurt, who knows if he's in the NFL right now? And we know what kind of production he had a couple of years ago. They've got a very young and awesome wide receiver group. They always have a solid defense. The big question with Kentucky is, can that offensive line hold up? They were atrocious last year. Offensively, they were worse than A&M was scoring the touchdown. So Liam Cohen's back. I think there's a level of optimism that he brings because he's done it there before and at a very high level. I think Kentucky is one of those teams that is definitely that we should keep our eye on. And I don't know if you have a follow-up, but I'm actually more concerned about South Carolina than others because I look at their schedule and I'm like, buddy, at the end of September, they may have 2 or 3 losses. So, and I love Shane Beamer, and I think they are building. They could be a better team than they were last year with a worse record, if that makes any sense. I think they're going to be good, but I'm not ready to put them at number 2 just yet.
Well, and they had some big losses off that team in the transfer portal also. To me, David, with them, and I'm curious to get your take on this, it all comes down to Spencer Rattler. Is he the quarterback that lit up Tennessee, or is he the quarterback that couldn't throw straight against Missouri a year ago? Because we saw a little bit of both throughout the season.
Well, I think with him, his entire career has been that way, right? Like you look at his freshman year at Oklahoma and how moments of brilliance, and then not so good his sophomore year. Caleb Williams takes over. We know how that kind of went. Even last year, I use A&M as a frame of reference. They got up on A&M 17-0. You would think they would be able to step on Aggie's throats. They weren't able to do that. That game, A&M had a chance to win on the final possession. That's when Connor Wigman came in and tried to give them a little spark, but it was a little too late. But overall, I 100% agree with you. If Spencer Rattler can be consistent, all the reports are he looks really good this fall. But let's be honest, doesn't everybody say that at this point?
Yeah, especially when you're driving a $150,000 car that he's rolling in on at Willie B at the stadium. Hey, final thing for you. You mentioned that no starter name yet. Wegman's going to be the guy. What would it take to see Max Johnson?
You saying mid-season, or you're saying for week one?
Early.
Do they know that he's the guy? Wegman's the guy. They just haven't said it yet, or is it like we may throw in Max Johnson here or there?
My opinion is Max Johnson has made this a battle, right? And Billy Lucci has reported this several times. Max Johnson has been so good that he has made it a battle. But the upside with Connor Wigman, the intangibles, the moxie that he has, I believe he will be named the starter, if not in the next 24 to 48 hours on the Monday press conference. He commands the huddle. He's got the wheels. He can improvise. He's got a beautiful touch. He and Evan Stewart have linked up so many times. this summer, and it's just a beautiful connection that they have. He's got it with Moose Muhammad as well. I think it's going to be Connor, and that's not a shot at Max. I think Max could come in and you could win a lot of games with Max Johnson. He beat A&M a couple years ago at LSU. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for Max. But the upside, and in this world where, you know, young players are playing a lot more and you've got to keep them happy, he's got enough on the – I mean, he threw 8 touchdowns last year, no interceptions, and really was and gave them their biggest victory since the Alabama game the year prior against LSU, where they put it all together. It's got to be Connor Wigman.
I'm excited to watch him play. Nuno, you're the man. Appreciate everything and having us on the show. Thanks for joining us today. Hope we can do it again soon.
Hey, guys, huge fan of the show. You guys know how much respect I have for you, and loved hanging out with you in Nashville a couple weeks back. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Let's do it again.
TexAgs.com. They get it done. Coming up, Heisman winner going for 2, maybe 3. Details next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here, Thursday edition. Hot Mic with Ut and Withrow across the OutKick network. The applause is from Withrow. I'll give
Show
it as
is
well.
rolling.
Here we go.
Show is rolling.
Here we go. Getting you through your
Sometimes
workday.
in life, write this quote down. Somebody in
Go
here.
ahead. I'll do it.
Sometimes in life, when no one else is applauding you, you must applaud yourself. And that's what we're doing right now.
We applaud ourselves.
We're not getting any applause, so you just applaud yourself. It's what I do after every game that we win with the 8U softball team. I walk out behind the dugout and I say, girls, give yourself a round of applause. Let's go. Good job. Good job out there. Then the parents join in, and it's a whole thing.
Chad, if you missed earlier, Chad is picking up tips and notes from the Little League World Series coaching staff. I never noticed that, and when you brought this up, I'm like, you absolutely are watching this, given how much time you devote in multiple leagues coaching softball.
My little cousin in Washington, D.C. was a part of it and was on ESPN playing in the Mid-Atlantic final, but didn't make it to Williamsport. So I haven't watched much of Williamsport, but I was watching the Tennessee team play last night in the later innings. It was such a close game. But when those coaches are mic'd up, hearing their interaction with these kids who sometimes are overly emotional, there's one guy kind of yelling something, and they're just – calm down. Take a deep breath. But the coach for the Tennessee team, the Nolensville team, was looking at his kids saying, we're going to get on the mound. We're going to take a deep breath. Everyone out here is going to want the ball to come to them. We want to make the play. And when the ball comes to us, we're going to make the play and get out of the inning. And just as calm as can be.
Calm,
yes, sir.
Reassuring.
Yes, sir. Well, talking to the one kid, he tries to swing for the fences on the first swing. He calls timeout, calls him over to third base and says, hey, one-run game. There's a runner right here.
Who are you, Mike Trout?
Yeah. What do we want to do here? All we got to do is just hit a ground ball to second base, and we tie the game up. So let's shorten our swing. Can we do that? Yes, sir. Next pitch, shortens the swing. Now he hits it to first base, and the guy ends up getting thrown out at home. But still,
he did exactly.
I'm amazed at the lessons given and then immediately learned and understood and then applying it on the field. It is a masterclass in coaching from youth coaches that I'm watching.
And
it's incredible.
Do the fans get after the umps in the same manner there? I don't get the sense they do. And
there's some boos on some strike calls, strike calls.
But not like you would see at the the local Babe Ruth League, down in Warren County, Tennessee, where I'm from.
Look,
you know what I mean.
I know.
If we can be sensible at the highest level of Little League baseball,
I know Davey over there hates Little League baseball and hates that it's on TV. But the job they do with the production, I will always.
Now, to Dave, I will also. I have not watched a single pitch other than highlights from your cousin. I haven't either.
I've watched very little, and when my cousin's involved, I'm going to watch. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not head over heels about it, but I will always take a second. Our production crew in here does a great job, and we want to shout them out when they do it. The production value on Apple TV, I mentioned, for MLS, great. What they do at ESPN for those games, when they get, it's a Julie Foudy, I think they have out in the crowd interviewing people and talking with other kids. That part of it mixed with, here's an example. Tyrone McKenzie, who's a coach for the Tennessee Titans, his son is the second baseman for the Nolensville team. So he's there with his wife and other small children. The kid gets hit in the wrist, looks like it's broken. It's not. By a fast pitch, right? He's down on the ground. There's doctors, there's trainers with him, and they can get the camera behind the mom who is moved up behind the backstop to watch to make sure everything's okay. And the ESPN cameras are behind her, getting her point of view with her arms crossed, looking behind it, and you just see the profile of the mom's face watching her son. That is next level cinematic work. That's by a camera crew and a producer
in the green room at the NFL draft.
In a producer in a truck to go to that shot and get someone with a walking camera there to get the mom's reaction as they're tending to her son on the field. I applaud it.
We applaud you.
I applaud that work. It's very well done by them. And I was excited to watch that game last night. I was most excited by the very little league play, but it worked to perfection of faking the trip to try to get the catcher to bait a throw back to first, and he did it, and they scored a run doing it.
Chad, coming up, we've got Armando Salguero. Talk NFL headlines. There are plenty across the NFL right now as we gear up for roster cutdowns. Of course, Trey Lance, is he going to be traded? Is he not? What John Lynch, general manager out in San Francisco, had to say today on KNBR. We'll get that. Plus, the Dolphins being linked to Jonathan Taylor among the 6 teams that have been reported that have picked up the phone and called the Colts that seem to be really interested. Armando Salguero gives us the latest coming up in 15 minutes. Right now, so imagine you're the Arizona Cardinals. You've traded away Isiah Simmons today, former first-round pick in 2020, for a seventh-round pick in return. You've traded pick number 3 in this year's draft to Houston so they could draft Will Anderson. And you drop back down to 12, and you end up drafting Paris Johnson, offensive tackle for Ohio State. They've also traded Josh Jones, an offensive tackle who started 11 games for the franchise last season, traded him today as well. And they seem to be the odds-on favorite for the number 1 overall selection in next April's draft. They also will likely hold the number 2 pick as well. Back-to-back picks in the NFL draft, meaning, hypothetically, they could end up with Caleb Williams, your reigning Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at USC, and Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State to pair with your franchise tackle. Well, I wonder what's going on today when they see this. And look, maybe they raise an eyebrow the same way we have in studio, but there's a lot to discuss here. Caleb Williams, according to Pete Thamel, here's the report. USC quarterback Caleb Williams claims that he hasn't decided if he will enter the 2024 draft. Williams will likely be the number 1 pick, but maybe he wants to hold on to leverage in case he doesn't want to go to the team that ends up picking first next year. Caleb, quote, "That's for sure now going to be an in-the-moment decision at the end of the year." So is this quarterback playing diva? And if you don't want to go number 1, maybe you don't want to go to Arizona. Don't want to go number 2 either, hypothetically, in that. Chad, this could also mean if he goes back-to-back as the Heisman winner, which he's trying to do right now, he would be going for the three-peat for the Heisman Trophy with the coach that knows how to coach Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
This is not diva at all. This is very alpha of Caleb Williams. What Caleb Williams is telling us and everyone else is, I'm going to be the number 1 pick whenever I come out. I'm that good. And he's right. He's right. He'll be the number 1 pick this year or next. Now, injury, all that stuff we can put out there as well. I think it begs the question of if Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, is actually considering this. Couple parts of this. One, how bad must he hate whoever has the number 1 pick?
Well, he doesn't
in
know.
Their direction.
You're right. He wants to.
But the fact that you're even putting that out there,
right?
The old Eli Manning, I will not play for the San Diego Chargers move. This organization sucks so bad, and the stadium situation is so bad, I will manipulate a trade to go play for the New York Giants and not the Chargers. That he must really have some level of disdain for an organization, a coach, an ownership group, whatever, right? That's one part of it. The second part is just how much money is he making to play football at USC, that it would even make sense to be able to do that. I'll add a third part to this question. How valuable is the possibility of a third Heisman Trophy and being the only man ever to accomplish such? How much value is that for the rest of your life? He's already doing a Dr. Pepper ad campaign throughout the college football season as we speak, as a one-time Heisman winner. Now, if he becomes Archie,
gig.
If he becomes Archie and wins it back-to-back, then, okay, what's the value in that? And then could he come back for a possible third one? There's a lot of questions that this begs from me.
No, this skyrockets.
Starting with, how bad must you not like the direction of one of the franchises that are going to be number 1?
You could also, if you want to pull the alpha move, you think about who would trade up to that pick to draft him and what they would be giving up. You've got the pick and the quarterback doesn't want to play for you. You could also just take Drake May, and another hypothetical here. But according to On3, Caleb Williams has the second highest NIL value in college football at $2.6 million. That's second to Arch Manning at $2.9. Caleb Williams, just reading straight from On3, $2.6 million is the estimate that he's receiving this year. He has deals, of course, with Dr. Pepper. They're doing a partnership with him through his foundation and that will coincide, I believe, with the Dr. Pepper halftime show or something there, and the Fansville commercials. He's going to be in the Heisman house. He's got Eye on Water, Neutrogena, AT&T, United Airlines, and PlayStation. That all adds up to $2.6 million annually. It goes and grows considerably higher, but does it take the jump to what Bryce Young just received to be the number 1 overall pick in Carolina, which is a fully guaranteed $38 million contract over 4 years? No. Not if it's at 2.6 now as the current Heisman winner.
See, first off, let me predict what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
He's going to go number 1 overall, and he's going to leave after this year, okay? But if he's speculating about it publicly, then we'll speculate about it publicly if he were to come back. If he comes back, he is the outlier and not the rule, because anyone else who's going to be the number 1 overall pick or a top 5 pick is gone. I mean, 99.999% of the time, they are gone for that guaranteed money. So if it happened, it would be a story because it is a story, because it's unlikely to happen again, and it really hasn't happened before. Where I think NIL money is going to could drastically improve college football is at the 2nd round through the 5th round level. If you are a star in college that we all know about, and you're putting up big-time numbers, a pass rusher or a quarterback or a receiver or running back, whatever, and you get a projection of 3rd round, but you are a campus legend, you've got great relationships with the NIL program at your school, you could make really good money to come back and dominate college football again for another year. I think that's where we could see an uptick in quality of college football if a bunch of those types of players, instead of electing to enter the draft a year early or after their redshirt sophomore year or after their junior year, they come back for another year or two. That's going to help the quality of college football. It's not going to be Caleb Williams because I don't think ultimately it'll happen.
3rd round's a good comparison here. Jalen Hyatt went in the 3rd round to the New York Giants. He is getting he received a $1.1 million signing bonus, and he has a 4-year contract that's worth $5.6 million. Is that virtually the same with nothing guaranteed? You don't have the guarantee that you do in the 1st round of the fully guaranteed 4 years, but you have the signing bonus, and that's slotted now. So if you know you're going, Jalen Hyatt needed to go in the 1st round, right? But what would he have been paid to go back?
And then he would have made the right decision, no doubt about it.
Right.
Not to say that he made the wrong decision, but I mean, here's the way I look at that. So 1.1 is the signing bonus?
1.1 was the signing bonus.
I feel very confident if Jalen Hyatt went back to Tennessee, and take Jalen Hyatt at any other of the top 25 programs in America. If Jalen Hyatt, who just won the Biletnikoff Award, comes back, I think that he surpasses that 1.1 million total in signing bonus. Do I think he makes that plus his salary in year 1? It's doubtful. I don't think he's making more than $2 million anywhere.
Yeah. And his
through
base,
an NIL,
his base is 1.4.
Yeah, but I think he's probably making that signing bonus.
Yeah.
So look, that's all.
But if you know you're a 2nd or 3rd round pick and you can be a 1st, then you take what you're making as a signing bonus and you wager.
You're basically doubling up
but
and tripling up because you're making
giving
more
bad
as a 1st
advice
round
that
pick.
you're a 1st round pick because you're the fastest guy on the field, and he is.
And he was.
And
because he thought he was a 1st round pick and thought that's where he was going.
Yeah,
he didn't.
Well, but exactly.
And he told us that.
But you see his stature, right? Like, again, all of that factored in. And the wide receivers did fall because of the group that you kind of pick the guy that you want, right?
Yeah.
You didn't see the 1st round run on wide receivers. You saw them in other positions.
But point being now, it's not just make a decision with your heart and go back to school and play for 1 more year because you love it and you love your teammates and you want to go for greater team goals. It can be a little bit play with your heart and your wallet. Let's make a business decision here. And I think Jalen Hyatt's a good case study on that, where he could have made more than his signing bonus, and maybe he does it again and people aren't like, oh, you're a 1-year flash in the pan. Oh, you can run different routes. You can do this, that. Now you're a 1st round pick. And then you've actually made more money, much more money in the long run for having done that.
And I think,
but there's no guarantees either way.
And this also works in the favor of your scenario here if the portal remains exactly what it is, instead of this 3-year pitch from Capitol Hill, going back to more or less what the NCAA rule book could not enforce. and now they're looking to make it federal law. It will take time.
And what did Caleb Williams make in the initial transfer from Oklahoma to USC? That's another part of this. We're talking about transfer portal. You know, that's what's got the coaches up in arms is
right.
What's to stop a player from doing this over and over again and just getting a signing bonus essentially at every school they go to along the way?
At least in his favor, he's following his coach. But exactly.
Yeah.
You do it
but
every
he still
year.
got something from USC when he did it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Riley had the $20 million mansion, $17 million mansion.
He got like Hef's place essentially. I think he's in the Playboy Mansion now, but it's
Aren't
it's in Malibu, but it's on the water. Is the only difference.
Aren't they all? Jonathan Taylor has a deadline of next Tuesday for the Colts, giving him permission to go seek a trade. He has until next Tuesday to figure out if he can find a team that wants to work out a contract with his agent for his services, and also in return give Indianapolis whatever it is they're willing to negotiate. Next Tuesday is also the roster cutdown day. A lot of discussion there, a lot of movement on the trade rumor wire right now, including Trey Lance, who's the number 3 quarterback currently, who left the facility yesterday in San Francisco when he was informed of this, that he's backing up Darnold. But Shanahan says, hey, we plan on playing him behind Darnold in the preseason game tomorrow. Armando's next.
Trey Turner he was struggling. They were booing the hell out of him in Philly. On August 4th, his numbers were this: through 108 games. He's hitting 236 with a 289 on base percentage and a 656 OPS with 10 homers and 35 RBIs through 108 games. The Phillies crowd gives him a standing ovation. And it's not a coincidence, guys. To you fans out there, there are players who you can trigger in a really good way. Since then, in the 14 games since then, 370, 414 on base percentage, 117 OPS, 4 homers, 12 RBIs. Okay, not a coincidence. This game, every athletic endeavor at this level is about confidence. It's all confidence. And there's a positive, and for anybody that's ever done sports psychology, there's a physical component to emotions. And by that, I mean your body releases different chemicals when you're happy, sad, depressed, pressured, motivated, all those things. And as an athlete, I can speak from personal experience. In October, I was a different human being. And I felt different. And my emotions were different. And my adrenaline was different. And when I pitched in front of big crowds when I pitched in Yankee Stadium, I was different. The crowds create those things, home and away. I remember in 1993 when we were playing the Braves in the playoffs. This was the time of the politically incorrect tomahawk chop that the Atlanta fans were doing. It's kind of when it started. And I remember they were doing that in Game 5. And Terry Mulholland told me before that game, he said, think about this, man. You have a chance to go out there and stop 45,000 people from talking and being emotional. And it led to the 2001 quote when I said, or 2004, when I said, I can't think of anything more enjoyable than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. And that's a sign of respect, by the way, New York fans, always was. But we feed off this stuff, man. The good players do anyway. You know what? I'll say it, and you hear it here first, and I don't want to be first, but Aaron Boone's going to get fired, and that's going to suck because none of this is his fault. And every player in Yankee pinstripes and these guys know Aaron, and I promise you they care very deeply about this guy. He's the kind of guy that warrants that kind of emotion. Every one of them should feel like crap because it's their fault he's going to get fired, period. You couldn't ask for a better, more calming influence. I guarantee you there's no panic in his voice. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a player, it always felt like Yankee fans wanted to see panic when they were losing. They didn't just want to panic. They wanted the organization to panic, right? You heard, I think earlier, what was it, last show, didn't we? John, we were talking about last show, trade Judge, trade Cole, blow it up. And it's like, no, number one. And you almost can't, number two. So if you can't fire the players, and firing anybody else would be meaningless to the field results, you got to fire the manager, the coaching staff. And unfortunately, I think that we're about to see that. And that sucks because it's not his fault.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow here across the OutKick Network. Talking ball. Football season is upon us. College kicks off this weekend. And, well, after tomorrow, we'll be headed into a 2-week rundown until week one, where we get KC and Detroit kicking things off on Thursday night for week one in the NFL season for 2023. A lot will happen between now and then. Armando Salguero's got it all covered for you at OutKick.com. Armando, good to see you. Hope things are well.
You scared me there for a second when you said we're talking ball. I'm coverage and
Talking some ball. Hey, Trey Lance has not balled out in San Francisco. A year ago, last offseason, he's sitting courtside with the Warriors ownership, and he's the king of the Bay. And now he is the third-string QB behind Sam Darnold. As Kyle Shanahan says, he was given plenty of opportunities to win the backup job. He left the facility yesterday. John Lynch is saying, in all likelihood, to begin their roster situation, he'll be on the roster in all likelihood. That's the cut-down day next Tuesday. What do you make of this? And what do you make of what Shanahan signed off on in his QB and what they traded away to go get this guy off of a season where he played in one game at North Dakota State?
Yeah. So what I make of it is it's one big honking pile of poo. And the reason for that is if let's put aside the fact that it's a huge draft bust at this point, okay? Because that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit of this all story. They gave up 3 first-round picks to move from number 12 to number 3 to take Trey Lance. And if you look behind those picks, the players that came after, the next 10, 6 of them are Pro Bowlers already. So they had to work at finding the guy that wouldn't work out.
And it's, you know what else? It's also very off-brand for Shanahan, who is known for taking the talent at quarterback, like Brock Purdy. He's known for being the coach that coaches that guy. He's known, Sam Darnold, of
doing
course
more with less.
Of course he's looking okay in San Francisco. Shanahan's there. It's very off-brand, not just to trade what they traded and it to be this bad, but for Shanahan to do it in that manner when they had Jimmy G at the time, and at least they were winning.
Yeah. You know what's not off-brand is they handle their quarterback situations poorly. They remember, they drafted Trey Lance 2 years after Jimmy G took them to the Super Bowl and didn't take them to the Super Bowl,
right.
But they went to the Super Bowl.
They were winning,
and Jimmy G was their quarterback. And then they basically handed the job to Trey Lance while Jimmy G was still signed and on the team. Not a competition, handed him the job. And then Trey Lance got hurt, and Jimmy G had to take over. And God bless Jimmy G, because he is the nicest person ever. Not an angry bone in his body, unlike myself. And the dude just took it and ran with it, and they played pretty well until he got hurt again. The point is, Jimmy G said his goodbyes to San Francisco, and then a year later found himself starting for San Francisco. Here we have Trey Lance on the trade block, demoted, and they're keeping him in the locker room where they've already humiliated him, so that maybe if something goes wrong with a former draft bust in Sam Darnold and a guy who's been injured, coming off of injury and was Mr. Irrelevant, Trey Lance can reemerge. Maybe, perhaps, because we're the San Francisco 49ers and we put quarterbacks in untenable situations.
Including tomorrow in their preseason game where Shanahan says he plans on playing Lance behind Darnold, who will start the game. Right before Chad picks up here, Mike Renner, who we had in studio recently, Armando, formerly Pro Football Focus, Mike PFF, this stat. Tom Brady had more passing attempts this season. He's going back, he's retweeting this. At 45 years old, 799 pass attempts. More pass attempts than Trey Lance has had in his entire high school, college, and NFL career. Isn't that amazing?
Incredible stat.
Right. And obviously, a lot of that is circumstances. I mean, Trey Lance played 1 year in 2020. What else happened in 2020 that affected people's chances of playing? I don't remember. It had something to do with masks. But anyway, the point, and I didn't mean face.
Not well, face mask, but yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So that obviously hurt him. You know, once upon a time, Bill Parcells told me, I want a quarterback, and I'll draft the quarterback after he has 36 starts in college. So if he doesn't have that, I don't probably want him. Trey Lance, I think, had like 5, 6, 14.
Yeah,
So,
it was something like that. Yes. Yep. Crazy.
And God bless North Dakota State. They're a powerhouse within their little niche, but it's a little niche. It's not the SEC.
It's cute. They're a cute little niche. They do very well in. They play some cute football up there in Fargo, no doubt about it. Tua did not think it was cute with what Ryan Clark had to say about him. I want to take this moment, Armando, to actually thank Ryan Clark for comparing Tua Tagovailoa to a fat stripper in Atlanta, because it sparked now one of my favorite nicknames going. We got to see the debut of Spicy Tua as he responded to these remarks. And I got to say, I kind of like it. I like this side of Tua that we saw and how he responded to this. It's a fire that I really haven't seen with him with the media before.
Withrow, you're in trouble, brother, because you got Tua's nickname wrong. I think it's Scrappy Tua.
Scrappy? Oh, I thought it was a take on Spicy Tuna, and they were going with Spicy Tua.
Okay.
So what I've read is Spicy Tua, which I like better. Either way, I liked his response.
Now he's got Tua nicknames.
Well played.
But is he fat, or did he add on muscle? Like the perception was he's all.
Here's what I also
the
thought
perception is he's Russell Wilson from last year.
Did he also like kind of get fat because he knows he's going to lose a lot of weight as camp and the season goes on? Is it one of those things? It's an odd look for sure.
I'm not going to retweet this segment because Tua might come after you guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're actually helping him
what
here.
He's going to say. Yeah, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think he's fat. He's always been thick, especially in the the legs and stuff like that. He's been in the hips.
He's got a big trunk.
Big boy there.
He's always had the trunk. Yes.
Now up here where he takes all the hits, not so much. So that's, I think, what he's tried to address. Mike McDaniel said today that in many respects, Tua has doubled his strength this offseason. And so that kind of goes against the idea that he's basically just been gobbling Whoppers to prevent future concussions. I don't think that's the case. Look, there's one of the offshore betting establishments has odds on what a Tua versus what a spicy, scrappy Tua versus, Ryan Clark would look like in a ring, in an octagon. And Tua's favored. And I would say to you, it would never happen because Tua's got like 52 other guys that would take on, anybody for that guy. That's the point of all of this. The people in there, in the locker room, whose fate is dependent on whether the quarterback is fat or in shape, believe in the quarterback.
The interesting pairing, too, because you have Tua, who trains jiu-jitsu to help out with how he's taking falls, and Ryan Clark pairs with Daniel Cormier for UFC on ESPN with a weekly show, too. So that's intriguing. Again, non sequitur there. Staying in Miami, the Dolphins in the mix for Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, everybody's in the mix, it seems like, right? Because, and yes, the Dolphins are in the mix. To what degree, that's the question that matters, okay? Look, when a player of Jonathan Taylor's caliber comes on the market so publicly, I would say to you 75% of the NFL is going to be, quote unquote, in the mix. After the in the mix comes about 3 levels that whittles things down. One of those is, okay, what do the Colts need to make this happen? Typically, the conversation between the teams is the easiest part of that because both teams recognize, look, you're not going to, destroy me on this, but you're going to get something. Let's make it work. The more difficult part is usually the contract that has to be signed because no team, including the Dolphins, is going to give draft choice compensation for Jonathan Taylor for a 1-year rental to the end of the season, in a season when he's missed all of the offseason and all of training camp. So nobody's going to do that. It's going to require a long-term deal. And guess what? Jonathan Taylor isn't going to be cheap and come cheap. He wants to get paid. He wants to get paid right at, if not below, what the highest paid running back is getting right now, which is $16 million a year. It is what it is. And that's the hard part.
Is he able to find a trade partner? The deadline's Tuesday that the Colts have put out there. He's on PUP, so if he remains on PUP going into week 1, he's on PUP for 4 weeks. Is this able to get done given the fact he's got to pass a physical and everything else, and he wants to be compensated?
Yeah, it's able to get done. It only takes one.
But what if the value of whatever he's...
one every second.
Okay, I agree with you. What if the value that he's looking for, though, isn't quite what is out there in these offers? Because, again, we know the value of running back right now.
That's a great question because I believe, in my heart of hearts, one of the reasons the Indianapolis Colts gave permission for Jonathan Taylor to seek a trade is because it would help Jonathan Taylor's agent and the Jonathan Taylor camp, let's call it, to realize what the actual market is for their players specifically, not just what they think the Colts are doing to them personally. It's what is actually in the market. And oftentimes players go out there into the market and realize I'm not quite as great as I think I am. And teams don't think that I'm quite as worthy of huge bucks as I think I am. And it kind of soothes the situation a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of the Colts' motivation for letting Jonathan Taylor do this is to let Jonathan Taylor know this is what a dispassionate offer to you looks like, because you think we're the devil. We're not the devil. This is what it looks like.
The Niners have had a couple of years to prepare for this Nick Bosa contract moment. Chris Jones is up for and is waiting on that deal there. We know Josh Jacobs is unhappy. What do you make of the top line holdouts currently? And is this all ado about nothing, knowing that deadlines of the regular season are straight ahead and the best players are going to get paid to show up? Maybe not Jacobs. I know you have your thoughts on that too, but specifically with Bosa and Jones.
Right. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not all that confident that he's going to be on my lineup sheet when the season kicks off. I really am not, because it's the terrible combination of, and by terrible, I'll explain that in a second.
Okay.
A really outstanding player coming off a really outstanding season, arguably able to say, hey, you know what? I've made a lot of money already. I can afford to sit out, which he's already said on social media, by the way.
Hey, by the way, 30 seconds left here, Armando. I don't want to rush you, but we have to.
Yeah, the point is Chris Jones. If I had to pick one guy that might be holding out this season, when the checks start, Chris Jones is the guy.
And 10 seconds. Bosa's going to be the highest paid player on defense, or no?
No, because that's just Aaron Donald.
Mr. Donald. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always great. Hey, here we are. We finally reached preseason week 3. Congratulations on to week 1. Armando
Sounds
Salguero
good.
there.
Talk to you guys next week.
Follow him on social. Check him out at OutKick.com. Coming up, more headlines. Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back.
Hey, Davey Hudson of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, pay my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With it?
Ooh, purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile. Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow.
Yeah. My favorite sports movie, Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time, probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie, probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Mario, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait, what was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're going to see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie, though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oh, we're going to watch both of them. Maybe on the same night, but we'll probably watch. I think you got to watch Barbie first, just so you're not, Oppenheimer might be a little too intense, you know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one, Oppenheimer.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
Chad, let me take you back to a better time.
Take me back, Hutton.
Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow rolls on across the
Let's go in the
OutKick
way
network.
back machine, and let's go back to a better time.
2000
Simpler time.
2005.
Ooh, a simpler time
2005.
indeed.
I'm in college.
I was just out of college.
The Laguna Beach is on MTV.
Okay. All right, I'm closing my eyes right now.
I was Team LC, Lauren
I'm
Conrad.
seeing Lauren
and Lowe.
Conrad. Lowe was another good one. What was the dude's
Kristen.
name? The brunette guy who was the star?
Started
who was
with a
with
J.
LC?
It wasn't Joey. It was Justin.
I don't want to
Oh,
typecast
yeah,
here
one
in
of
the
them was
studio,
Justin.
but if Brooke is in here, I bet Brooke would know the guy's name.
Yeah. But you're right.
I mean, this is killing me now. Okay,
Some
I'm closing my eyes still as I
And
look this up.
Matt
I'm trying to keep one
Leinart,
eye closed.
Matt Leinart, Lindell White, and
Okay.
specifically Reggie Bush are dominating with Pete Carroll in Southern California. And I'm just thinking to myself, Matt, can it get any better than Laguna Beach? And
What a time to be alive.
yeah. And that season happened. The Heisman happened.
Steven is who I'm thinking of.
Steven, there you go.
Steven Coletti.
The Heisman was won. It was awarded to Reggie Bush. He has filed a defamation lawsuit against the NCAA. And as we were discussing the story in the headline yesterday, it was based on illegal activities that the Heisman, it was vacated, allegations that he received impermissible benefits from a marketing agency during his playing days with the Trojans. Now, there's a lot of details beyond that sentence, right? But look at the landscape now. And I think that's what I'm viewing through. It's a lot like sports betting, sports wagering from a player now compared to what we would think about in the 90s or even 15 years ago. It's just different. And here is Reggie Bush with his attorneys. He held a press conference yesterday overlooking Memorial Stadium from a terrace just across the street.
I got dreams of coming back in the stadium and running out of that tunnel with the football team. I got dreams of walking back in here, seeing my jersey, my banner, right down there next to the rest of the Heisman Trophy winners. But I can't rightfully do that without my Heisman Trophy. And every day, we worked our butts off, grinded. I showed up to work, I put my helmet on. Everything that was asked of me, I did it. Every time that number 5 was called on, I delivered. And I kept delivering. And it's unfortunate that that hard work that was put in, that was built not only by me, coaches, teammates, we all helped build this thing here. It's unfortunate that it was all torn down so easily. There's no factual evidence behind any of these claims. And so most recently,
what he's going to get into there is you have name, image, likeness, and pay for play. However, pay for play is illegal based on the NCAA rules. So therein lies the detail. The defamation on how it's impacted, his the way he's viewed, his legacy, what we think about. I don't think about Reggie Bush losing his Heisman. I think about Reggie Bush winning his Heisman. And by the way, you mentioned the number 5, NCAA football 2006. 2004, 2005. I'm balling out with Reggie Bush with his name, image, likeness that he's not compensated for.
No one cares anymore. Like, no one cares about this. When you look at what's happening now, and this is always, there's a changing standard in society with a lot of things. Some will bemoan that changing standard, a moral standard at times that can degrade as years go on. But I just think at what he is alleged to have done versus reality of not just today, but even then. And I think, why aren't we just giving him his Heisman Trophy back? This is so stupid. The fact that there's even a fight over this right now, just give Reggie Bush the Heisman Trophy back. Who cares?
Well, but
do we really look back in anger and think, I am just aghast at what happened in San Diego with his family living rent-free in this home. I cannot believe any young man would ever do this while playing football at the University of Southern California. It's just stupid. I don't think anyone cares. We got to think common sense here on certain things.
We don't care. We don't care. So the Heisman Trust revoked it because the NCAA took away the stats that allowed him to win the Heisman that year over Vince Young. By the way, VY has said, no, he was asked whenever he's a rookie here, I don't want the Heisman Trophy. It's Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy. Johnny Manziel has come out publicly and said, I want nothing more than for Reggie Bush to have the Heisman Trophy. The defamation that is cited in the lawsuit is July 1st, 2021, when name, image, likeness was come one, come all. Across the board, the NCAA took a step back. Why? Because they didn't want to be sued. They knew they were going to lose. And here is, this is, Chad, a lawsuit that I'm curious about how far it goes. Davey, weigh in on this too. And where we end up with it, because what we always heard about the NCAA, why are they going to the federal level for legislation? Because they need law instead of rules and guidelines, because they know they're going to lose in court. That's what they were told. That's what happened. But the defamation is, according to Bush's side, well, NIL and pay for play, they are going to have to prove that that was, in fact, defamation on what they are taking away from Reggie Bush, when you can't, pay for play isn't allowed, but NIL is based on the collective structure, not the university, and not a booster coming in and paying someone something or giving a parent $10,000 or whatever the details were here that made him go to where he did. That is, how scared will the NCAA be with this? That's all I'm really asking, because they don't like lawsuit threats, and that's why they took a step back in 2021.
Let me give you my advice to the NCAA, Heisman Trust, whoever is involved in any of this. Fold like a tent and just settle. Give them the Heisman Trophy back. Give them the stats back. Do whatever's necessary. Who cares? Why is this a hill to fight on right now?
That's their hill, though. They took it down. Like retroactively, they're going to give Louisville their banner back. You know,
I mean,
it happened. It's just on precedent. I'm interested to see what happens, Davey.
Yeah, I need to go back and do more research into the actual findings of the case back in, gosh, what year was it? Whenever they ultimately took it away.
It was 2004 season, but it was.
But they came back.
Yeah, they came back. It was
a couple
like years later.
2010.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Yeah. So I mean,
sorry. Yeah. And
no,
then he had
I want to go back.
He had a 10-year period where he could not associate with USC.
Yes, and at this point, I don't know how much longer they can keep this charade up as far as the NCAA working, because I mean, at this point, anytime somebody takes them to court over anything, it seems like they're winning. But yeah, I mean, I do need to do more research into what the NCAA ultimately found at the time in 2010. But everyone wants it. I know his petition to get that Heisman reinstated failed, and that's why we're now seeing this defamation suit come forward. But if you're Reggie, you got to be feeling good that just the way everything is trending, you're ultimately going to get it back.
O.J. Mayo was also there and cited USC for lack of institutional control. Craziness. But guess what? I loved it. Like the steroid era, Chad. Loved it.
O.J. Mayo is a great blast in the past name. I haven't thought about him in a long time.
We haven't heard these crazy headlines that Davey Hudson has dug up. He's also got some dating news. It's time for Let's Get Weird.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Talking now.
Guys, my first story today has to do with the destination wedding. Now, this is...
No.
No?
Can we go to the dating with Davey first?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm looking right here at a rundown, and it says
it's there.
with Davey.
Yeah.
And I every time I see this on the rundown, I'm way more interested in this than anything else.
Yeah, totally
Please.
fine. So the story, I know I caught you all up to date on one of my dates from when I was in Nashville before going home. This date I'm about to tell you about now.
One of my many dates, as Davey says.
Yes, happened while I was back in Knoxville. And just to set this up, I do want to say that I don't come from Knoxville. I come from a county, Lenore City, which is in Loudoun County, right outside of it. But Knox County, it's almost 500,000 people. So this isn't just like you randomly run into somebody and it's a small town kind of thing. I ended up going on a date with this woman who also works in media. So we had a lot to talk about in that regard. And we go to this bar in Knoxville. And I actually see one of my good friends I graduated high school with. Had no idea he was in town. He currently does not live in the state, but he happened to be there. And I'm not going to give his name away. But as the date's progressing, this girl that I'm with, she starts talking about how she loves going to Tennessee football games. And the person that controls the tickets at where she works, she's like, yeah, it's just one of those things where I wish I could get these tickets to these better games. In particular, the biggest game on the schedule this upcoming season is Georgia versus Tennessee. And I smile because she says a name, and I'm like, it's not an uncommon name, but I have an idea. I know who this is. So she starts talking about it. It's like, well, do you want me to put in a good word for you? And she's like, oh, you know this person? And I was like, yeah. And so as we're sitting there, I yell over to the guy who happens to be the son of the guy who's in charge of the tickets. And my friend comes over. We catch up like old times. And he does a great job being a solid wingman and just sets up. He's like, I'll put in a word with my dad. There will be no problem. So just so happens this one bar that I think I've been to one time before, I choose to go to, end up hooking this girl up with some tickets that she desperately wanted. So
this is great. It feels planted. It's so perfect.
You hook her up with tickets, but did you hook up?
And this is the reverse of what happened last week, Davey, when the guy came in just a little bit too early that recognized you at the bar. Like, this is the perfect sequel to that.
But I feel like
because the timing here is perfection.
I feel like this one went better for you, though.
Oh, the date definitely did.
You feel better about it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we had a lot in common. Made her laugh a lot. So it's
I love that.
A little unusual, but
no, I mean,
I'm just saying, like,
but she has the tickets. Like,
she got my sense of humor, which doesn't always happen.
Humor, I can't imagine what you were saying then. If she was laughing, I mean,
does she?
Props, bravo.
Is she getting? Yeah, good job. Is she getting the tickets? Do we know?
I haven't got confirmation, but I know for a fact if. She will be getting tickets. I just don't know like when that's going to happen.
How much of your success hinges on her getting tickets moving forward, do you think?
Not even that much, just because everything else went so well from the date.
And we'll get to the passport later. We'll get to this later. I know exactly what he's thinking about, though. We had a story, was it 2 weeks ago, that at Neyland there were two different pairs of tickets that were supposed to go for $500 that were sold for $5 to that game. And there was another pair on the opposite side of the stadium that went for $6 instead of $600. And you paid more in tax fees or handling fees through Ticketmaster or whatever the service was there, StubHub, than the actual face value of whatever you paid for on the secondary market because people screwed up. Davey is thinking to himself, man, if I only knew about this $5 StubHub deal where someone messed up.
Well, I'm thinking she's going to get free tickets.
No, but he would already have the tickets. But you want to go? I've got a pair of tickets. Would you like to go?
Well, Davey, great work. I mean, this
are they good seats?
10 out of 10.
They should be based off the company that owns them. I'm not going to put that out there, but yeah.
Pilot Oil?
No, not Pilot. I'm putting in a word with Jimmy. You know?
No. Well, I didn't know that Davey knew Tim Cook's kid of Apple. Good job.
What do you guys think about the naming rights of TVA?
I don't really care. It's being termed Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center.
I think it's
so I don't know how they're going to go with that.
$20 million is what they're bringing in
over 10 years.
Yeah,
$2 million a year. Yeah.
I mean, I'll still refer to it as TBA, but I mean, you might add in a quick joke about the FCC. There's some play on words there.
That's correct too.
It's not bad.
Coming up,
Davey, please bring more of these stories. I eat them up every time.
He's got a groom's passport story.
I want more dating stories. I
want he's got to go on more dates.
Stories. Yeah.
He's got to go on more dates.
Let's get
Headlines
a date out
next.
Here. Plenty of girls outside this bar.
Ohtani and Curt Schilling's take on how much money he's losing. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted and how
he bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hours here on this Thursday edition, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. If you're listening to this great radio station, we say thank you. If you are subscribed to our YouTube channel for OutKick, a salute to you. If you're not, we hope you'll go there, hit the subscribe button, and hit the like, give us a thumbs up, join Chad in the chat, which is always busy, and share the link if you don't mind. Busy show, and it will be a fast-paced final hours. We get you through your workday up to 6 p.m. Eastern. Chad, the news across Major League Baseball at the trade deadline was a bit of a surprise. The Angels decided to be buyers, not sellers. And since then, they have been in the cellar. And I don't know if you can go any deeper as far as rock bottom than learning yesterday that Ohtani, who's back on the mound after the blister issues and everything else going on, leaves the game early with elbow soreness, and it turns out he has a tear in his elbow that will likely require Tommy John surgery. He's had this before in the same arm, the right arm, in 2018, and this is right on the beginning stages of what is going to be an extremely hyped, and I don't think we can overhype, the free agent frenzy for the league's best player and the best talent we've ever seen with what he does on the mound and from the plate. Curt Schilling also agrees, and you can hear his full comments on all things Major League Baseball on the Curt Schilling Baseball Show, available this episode, sneak peek here, but available tomorrow. It'll drop tomorrow at OutKick.com. Here is Curt Schilling giving his take on what he feels like this injury will do for Ohtani and how it impacts his value on the free agent market this offseason.
So, wow. Been a bummer of a couple weeks since the deadline for the Angels. Last night, Shohei Ohtani comes out of a game, and he had some soreness in his elbow. I found it very interesting that there wasn't pain. If you listen to the people talk, he said just didn't feel right. And he apparently has a torn UCL, which is the Tommy John ligament. And bottom line, just to go right to the fan focused piece of this, probably $250 million injury. I'm not going to pay you for the player you can't be. I get it. And the back end of the contract will reflect you being a pitcher and a hitter if that happens, but the front end won't. And listen, he's still going to get monster money because he's a 40, 50 home run premium power guy, but he's not going to be a pitcher for probably the first year and a half to 2 years of the contract. And I don't think you pay him as such. I don't think he can demand as such. Now, where this goes off the rails is you've got what will probably be a very desperate Yankee team this winter. Now, I don't know about desperate, but they will be looking to reverse the trend in a big, big way. They may come in and overbid and outbid everybody for this guy just because. But at a minimum, you're looking at an incredibly differently structured contract for him. And that's part of the risk you take. He could have signed in Anaheim. I understand why he didn't, but they're out of it. Trout's back on the DL. They brought up some kids, and they're 10.5 games out of the final wild card. So their season's over. So in my mind, you keep Trout, let him get fresh for next year, and maybe you approach Ohtani if you're serious about having him back. I don't see it. And I think the contract is now going to be a fascinating discussion this winter because it's not going to be the $500 or $600 million that I was thinking maybe for 10 years. I just don't see that.
There's Curt Schilling. Again, the full episode drops tomorrow at OutKick.com, the Curt Schilling Baseball Show.
For him on that one.
Man, think about also, yeah, no doubt. Think about if you were the trade partner, the could've, would've, should've trade partner that everyone expected the Angels to be on board with, shipping out the talent and getting the up-and-comers the prospects in return and the boatload that it would take to get Ohtani now for a team that's going all in for the World Series and willing to pay him long term. Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Giants, Seattle was in the mix at one point, especially during the All-Star break. You imagine going in on the game's best and committing that, your future prospects, but also knowing that you're in to pay the dude. You're not going to give up all that unless you're signing him to a massive deal, only to learn that he's, having Tommy John surgery because of an injury in August. Man, I've also thought today about the other organizations, and man, they were on the phone, they were trying hard, and it would have been extremely detrimental to them as well. And now you get to assess the market for the guy that you wanted and were probably willing to give up the farm for, literally.
I think about it. It's a great point, Hutton. And I think about not just that, but you get Ohtani. If you traded for him, you get him and you're thinking, okay, this is the key to us winning a World Series. Then this happens. Obviously bad. But the opportunity cost and I went through and looked at all those possible trade partners and the level of prospect and young talent that would have been given up to get Ohtani. Then you look at it and say, well, we lost him for this fall, but there was no guarantee we were going to re-sign him anyway, so not the biggest loss in the world. Then you start to think, oh, but I lost prospect number 4, 8, 17, and my starting second baseman this year in a trade. And those guys are going to go on to be really good pros, we think, in that deal. That's what would kill you. To me, if you're a GM and you made that move, then this happens. It's what you lost in the trade because everyone that was in the market for this, and if you went through and looked at any possibility, they were all selling the farm to get Ohtani. So you're losing your best prospects for a guy who eventually tears his UCL. So from that perspective, there's a lot of other teams that are happy they didn't make that move or that they weren't allowed to make that move because the Angels decided to stay put and go for it. Not just stay put, they became buyers. They were trading guys away to get players who could help them now, and they've fallen flat on their face from that point forward.
And I threw this out earlier, and Curt mentions this in what we just played there. Maybe this allows the Angels to get back in this bidding market too.
Yeah.
In a weird twist.
It could be a discount that they can now get him.
They can now compete with.
Yeah.
That's the other weird dynamic to this injury because they know him better than anyone, and he's already chosen them once whenever he originally decided he was going to play for them. Chad, have you given us the blessing to go watch Swamp Kings?
Well, that's depending on who I'm referring the show to. So I've watched episode 1 of Untold Swamp Kings. Now, we've talked about this. We talked to Trey Wallace, who he interviewed the director. A lot of the reviews are for the Untold series. It really is false advertising because they're not getting into a lot of the more salacious stuff that Florida involving off-field arrest. And Aaron Hernandez is mentioned for like 45 seconds to a minute, apparently of all, I think it's 4 parts, 4 episodes on this. And he's only mentioned once in passing. There's not a lot of talk about, Urban Meyer in a negative context. There's not a lot of talk about arrest in a negative context and this and that. So I went into this and I tried to keep as open a mind as possible in watching episode 1, and I was able to do so last night and this morning. Here's my review. If you are someone who's dropped into this country and knows nothing about college football or knows very little about college football and even less about the University of Florida, this is a well-produced story of a guy coming from across the country and putting this discipline in like it's a military dictatorship in terms of workouts and everything else, and getting this misfit groups of guys, some from the inner city, one guy who's this diehard homeschool kid who's the son of missionaries, and putting them together, and all they care about is winning and knocking the piss out of you and doing it with style and grit and everything else. It's compelling from that perspective. To the layman, to someone who doesn't follow college football, to someone who doesn't know about that era of Florida football much, if this is being told to you as a first-time narrative of something that happened, that's a docuseries, I think it's really entertaining and really well done. The behind-the-scenes footage is pretty cool. You know, there's cursing in it. They're not holding back with that. You're hearing Urban Meyer swear at players. Brandon Seiler, who's one of the guys on camera, is very entertaining. And he don't know what he's going to say from moment to moment throughout episode 1 of this. But if you were someone entrenched in the world of Southern college football, and you know your SEC, and you know your Florida,
and how this is promoted,
and you know Urban Meyer, and you know that the Untold series has been hard-hitting from the Malice in the Palace to the one that went through the Balco scandal to the Johnny Manziel documentary we just saw, you're going to be disappointed because episode 1 is a hero's tale. I mean, it really is. It is a hero's tale of Urban Meyer overcoming adversity in 2005, of Tim Tebow being the white whale that everyone was after, that Florida got, and he was the savior that came in. And, I mean, I think that's the way it's depicted. Now, did I find myself entertained at times watching some of the workouts and hearing some of the first-person analysis?
And you were at the games. You're literally at the games as this is playing out in college.
It's a good refresher for those. I mean, I was out of college a couple years. But
at your college.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good refresher for those that remember this era of college football, right? But if you're looking for anything other than a glorified version of Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and those Florida teams, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you're going to this thinking compelling, well-produced, behind-the-scenes sports story that's a hero's tale of coach leading misfit group of guys to greatness, then you're going to like it. This is what I would call, Hutton, the Disney version of Florida football from 05 to 010. I'm one episode in.
That's difficult to do.
I'm going to watch the rest of it, but one episode in, that is my take. And the first episode culminates with a 10-minute sequence that's all about Florida at Tennessee in 2006 and how this is the breakthrough moment of Urban Meyer at Florida when they have a come-from-behind win in the fourth quarter against the Vols in Knoxville. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes locker room footage of that, sideline footage. Our buddy Dan Mullen is good. He's interviewed for the documentary. But documentary is very loose in the description of what's happening with this.
What you're saying is we were expecting playmakers on ESPN, and instead we got the Nickelodeon broadcast of the Wild Card Weekend game in the NFL. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think
if this is the rated G instead of a hard R,
I think the knocks on here's a good comparison. And look, people are going to laugh because I absolutely love this, and it's probably my favorite sports documentary ever. It's the way people criticize The Last Dance, like Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan handed over the rights to this season and the behind-the-scenes footage. In turn, what did Michael Jordan get? He got final edit. He got final say on everything.
Took out Luke Longley.
So it is Luke Longley, Bill Winnington. He had a minute's cut from the docuseries where he was interviewed in this. Steve Kerr being punched. No, they talked about those things, right? Like, I liked it because they did address the things we all wanted to know about. But I can understand if you're Scottie Pippen and you really know Michael Jordan and you're thinking, man, this made me look really bad at times. There's a lot of things they didn't say about you. That's the sense I got with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow's participation in this. Not that Tim Tebow, you can find a lot of things to make him look like a bad guy. But I think that if they were going to take part in this was going to have to be spun in a certain way that was, we'll go into this area that you had a bunch of wild men on this team that did some crazy things, but I don't want to answer questions about Aaron Hernandez. I don't want to answer too many questions about what happened on campus with this. We're not even going to mention him, but Tim Tebow might tell a story about a bar fight involving him, but that's it. It was spun in a way. But, again, just like the rest of the series, it's very well produced and compelling at times. But if you want something below the surface and more than what you bargained for, you're not going to get it from Swamp Kings.
Maybe we'll get an untold Texas and Oklahoma against the world years from now. Because Steve Sarkisian, head coach at Texas, said that, look, everyone's going to hate us. We have to embrace the hate in 2023, our final season in the Big 12. Well, it's not just the fan bases. Here is Commissioner Brett Yormark speaking at the Red Raiders kickoff luncheon at Texas Tech about Texas Tech against Texas.
In addition, candidly, we were able to get Texas and Oklahoma out a year early. That was a big deal for us, and I think all of you, okay? And Coach, I'm not going to put any pressure on you, but I'm going to be in Austin for Thanksgiving, okay? And you better take care of business like you did right here in Lubbock last year.
I love this. Chad, if you would have told me this was the Republican debate last night, it sounded similar with how he's, he's stumping on behalf of his conference. I love Brett Yormark. I want to get the guy on the show. He speaks his mind. He tells you exactly what he's forthcoming with information on.
He can be my commissioner.
Laying out the path for relevance instead of, not figuring out the landscape of college football like Pac-12. And that's exactly what he's done. And Texas and Oklahoma will go through the ringer, but they also know they're going to a windfall of a conference that isn't trying to just keep up with the Joneses. They were, and they're taking their talents elsewhere.
Texas can deal with this. I'm sorry. You can't expect them to kiss up to you after you bailed and left the conference.
No.
So this is totally fine with me.
They should be worried about Alabama, not Texas Tech.
True.
But there we go. Coming up, Trey Lance trade opportunities.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one. I have no idea. Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
No, that's Florida.
That's Florida. That's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Knoxville.
No.
Do you know the capital of Tennessee?
What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East Coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress.
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. Atlantic. What is the capital of Tennessee?
Nashville.
It's Nashville, guys! How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question, so.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that?
1818.
Before that?
1777.
After that?
1789.
Before that?
1784.
After that?
1785.
After that?
1786.
After that?
1777.
After that? You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in, West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail, so. Uh-oh.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutt and Withrow rolls on. Final hour here on this Thursday edition. Our thanks to Armando Salguero for joining us. Had a great chat with Michael McKenry earlier in the show. And David Nuno of TexAgs.com going across the SEC.
Fun show.
It has been. Man, this time of year, plenty of trade bait out there. Jonathan Taylor rumored with upwards of 6 teams. You've got whatever's going on with Josh Jacobs. Of course, some other trades have happened with the Arizona Cardinals today. Isiah Simmons, former eighth overall pick in 2020. And he's listed as a linebacker/safety. Ends up getting traded for a 7, not the 7th round pick. 8th overall pick in 2020. 7th round pick is what the New York Giants gave up in order to acquire him from Arizona.
Can we go back to this Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs thing quickly? The fascinating part to me, not fascinating, the hilarious part of all this to me is that it's not, the grass is not going to be greener on the other side for any of these guys based on the market for running backs. But it's just now to the point where they're essentially saying, I'm so hurt by what I've been told by this organization that on principle, I'm willing to go anywhere else and be treated the exact same way financially, just to not have to look at you again. Now, the Jim Irsay piece in this is the biggest one. Whatever he said on his RV outside of camp really pissed off Jonathan Taylor.
And not just that. What he said after that.
What he said publicly.
Where he said, we running backs.
It'd be inappropriate.
Inappropriate to bring up the fact that they need to go back to the CBA because they agreed to this. You know, and both sides were right there in what the running backs are saying and then what ownership would. Of course they should point to the collective bargaining agreement. No way are they going back to the negotiating table over this position, given the fact that the players signed up for this. But the players are also saying, hey, the fact that you're tagging us is keeping the overall value down. That's why we're $8 million less than any other position on offense other than kicker or punter.
Yeah, it's not. So we've reached a point now of it's not, I'll show you my value. These other teams value me much more and will pay me what I'm worth. It's, you piss me off. I want to go work for anyone else but you now. I'll take less or I'll take the same, and I'll have the same contract conditions there. I just want out from under you. That's what Jonathan Taylor's saying. From the beginning, he's wanted out of Indianapolis, but then after what Jim Irsay told him and after what he said publicly, he definitely wants out anywhere else. He's not getting paid more anywhere else. It's going to be the exact same situation, but it's new.
And Irsay said publicly, too, he was quoted, we're not trading him now, this was July, and not in October, which is the deadline.
It's almost like Jacobs, Taylor, Saquon Barkley worked it out where he got sort of a symbolic gesture from the Giants that I guess appeased him enough to keep it going.
$2.5 or $3 million up front.
Yeah, but everybody else, it's almost, you think about what is Austin Eckler eventually going to do. It's like these guys have PTSD, and the only way to rid themselves of it is to just not put on that helmet anymore. But it's going to be the same situation wherever they go, but I can't live here now. I need to go live this out somewhere else because where the trauma happened to me and where I felt ultimately disrespected was here, so I can't wear this horseshoe anymore, or I can't wear this Raiders logo. I need to get out of this situation and start being disrespected from another franchise.
Well, there's a difference.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Jacobs can play and be guaranteed $10.1 million. And Taylor's getting $4 million, and he knows if he has a great year, he's getting franchise tag. I wonder, as a part of this trade, keep an eye on the terms of if the team is agreeing to extend him, not tag him after this, which would be for the 10, and if he wants upwards of 12 to – he's 24 years old. That factors into all of this, too. Saquon's what, 28?
Yeah.
Something like that. Chad, the other big trade discussion is Trey Lance. Speaking of Trey, he's the third quarterback on the depth chart. Kyle Shanahan informed him of this yesterday, along with John Lynch. And Lynch, very candid with KNBR radio in San Francisco earlier this morning, where he said, yeah, he took it like a gut punch. And that was his response whenever the hosts asked John Lynch, hey, did he request a trade? He's like, well, he took it. He handled this like a professional. So did John Lynch, by the way, with the way he's commenting publicly, unlike Jim Irsay in negotiations publicly with Jonathan Taylor. But he also said that the most likely option is that Trey Lance is going to remain on the 49ers roster as the third-string quarterback to begin the season, going into the season, which is roster cut-down day, down to your 53. That takes place at the close of business on Tuesday. So here's the quote. We're very happy with Trey. The most likely option is that he's here. If we can find a landing spot for Trey that's really good, one for him and works for our organization, that's not something that we turn a blind eye to. But that's not where our focus is right now. Our focus is getting Trey back here and us being the best football team. We're getting close to Pittsburgh in week 1. I think that's very candid because he also said, hey, we're agreeing not to tag Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, we intend on trading him. And things worked out to where they actually needed Jimmy G down the stretch of last season. I don't get the sense, though, that this is about keeping Trey Lance as the third quarterback. If Trey Lance, I'm saying it's like insurance. If Trey Lance were in the cards, he'd be the backup quarterback over Sam Darnold. I think this is about other teams not willing to pony up and trade for a guy that they know either is likely to be cut because he's the third-string quarterback before he's even played the third preseason game, and apparently he's going to play tomorrow night if Kyle Shanahan gets his way. Teams know, hey, you're going to cut the guy. If you want, they've got Allen there as their fourth-string quarterback. So if he wants to be the third, again, this isn't about keeping him around. I don't think there's a scenario where that works out in their favor. It's time to cut losses, and it will be big losses. It's just time to move on if you can find the trade partner. I think it was difficult. We went through this yesterday, trying to do this with teams that have backups already in the mix. But if you start thinking about a couple of organizations, Chad, here are my 3 that I would look at for landing spots. Number 1, Arizona, and we brought them up yesterday. The Arizona Cardinals, to me, Kyler Murray's coming off of the ACL. You've got a situation where, at least yesterday, I'm thinking, man, their quarterback room is crap. Maybe they want it that way, though. But they also just had Caleb Williams say, I may stay. If the team picking 1 and maybe 2 back-to-back, I may stay in college instead of play for a team. He didn't name Arizona, but they're the odds-on favorite for the number 1 and number 2 overall picks based on the trade they made with Houston during the draft. Again, they need an option. They're going to suck, but at least you get a chance to coach a guy and see what he's like for the number 3 overall pick that Kyle Shanahan even signed off on in the draft. That's my first pick. Second, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota's in the mix because Cousins is on the final year of his deal. They're totally fine with that. And they were the reported team that made sure they were in the mix, kept in touch with John Lynch during the draft as the 49ers have been shopping him throughout the entire offseason. Keep an eye on the Vikings. And I also say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arians has a big foothold there, still does. loves his quarterbacks. They're looking for that bridge to the next guy. Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. Why not try out Trey Lance if you're Tampa Bay? Scenario's not great there, but you don't have a great scenario for the long term anyway. It's a 1-year contract for Baker Mayfield. Throw in Atlanta as well. Atlanta was linked to Trey Lance through Arthur Smith when he took the job. And, I mean, he's built for that style of offense. I just don't know if he's built to be a starting quarterback and what the price tag would be. But those are my top 3: Arizona, Minnesota, Tampa Bay.
So here's what I think, Hudden. I think that what they're waiting on is for who is the most likely team or which team is going to have a quarterback hurt where it's going to dictate the trade at that point.
There's some starters
because
playing
going into the season with 3 with Trey Lance, they would trade him if they got a decent offer now. But they know, okay, now if we go into it, someone's going to get hurt in the first 2 or 3 weeks, and they're either going to need someone to compete to be the starter or they're going to need a backup. And then maybe they're going to be more likely to give up more for Trey Lance at that point. So you kind of put him out there as bait at that point with the injured teams. You're immediately on the phone when someone goes down in week 1 or week 2, and you know that, hey, here's a guy who was a first-round pick. Yeah. I know you liked him in the evaluation also. This is his chance to shine or at least compete for your starting job or be your backup. What will you give us in return? That's what they're waiting on. I like those 3 options. Those are, I think, probably the 3 best and most likely. But the outside options I'd look at is anyone who gets a quarterback injured early, and they're going to be the ones that are more desperate to give up a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit more for Trey Lance.
Right, and he's certainly available at that point, being 3rd on the depth chart. Davey Hudson rejoins us. Davey, it's time for Pick Your Poison, and we're doing that with the quarterback group across the NFL. This is going to be a difficult task.
Yeah, Hud, so for this segment, you got to pick one of these 4 guys that you are trusting to save your job if you are a coach in the NFL. And our 4 options for today.
And let's clarify this. You have 1 year, correct?
1 year. That is correct.
You've got to save. That can mean whatever you need it to be. 500 record, 9-8, whatever. But you got to save your job.
And you've recently mentioned several of these quarterbacks, but to start the list off, we got Baker Mayfield in Tampa.
Okay.
We have Kyler Murray in Arizona, Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, and Jordan Love in Green Bay.
Hutton, you start.
So Baker Mayfield can go on streaks. I don't think he can go on a streak that takes Tampa and that locker room to where they're viewing him as the leader. Because if that were the case, he wouldn't be on his 4th team in however many months it's been now. It's not a good 12 months. Not a good situation based on that. He's looking to rejuvenate the career. Kyle Trask nearly beat him out if you listen to reporters. I'm not taking him. Chad, to just go straight, I'm going with the guy that I don't really know, Jordan Love. I'm going with Jordan Love.
Love, baby.
Because
Aaron Rodgers' favorite quarterback.
The other 3, I'm not likely keeping my job if it's a playoff or pink slip. And it also, I'm not keeping I just need, if it's a winning, whatever it might be. It's not if you lose, it's how you lose. I can lose in Green Bay, but still end up winning with Jordan Love, if that makes sense. No one's expecting much from this dude. And, I mean, they have had success finding the guy.
Let's go through the options one more time. Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love,
Kyler Murray, and Desmond Ridder.
Am I looking at the situation they're in, or is this all things equal, I'm a coach and I need a quarterback to save my job? That is a bad list of options.
You're thinking Kyler Murray.
I'm not going Call of Duty, man. I don't like those reports. Some think it's overblown. I don't. I don't think the guy loves playing quarterback enough to study the way he should. I get strong Johnny Manziel minus the partying vibes from preparation from Kyler Murray in a lot of ways, even the style he plays in.
This is a good list.
Yeah, Kyler Murray's very much an ad-lib guy like Johnny Manziel. Don't love that one. Jordan Love, never been a fan of. I think that if he was better, we'd have heard a lot more of a rush to get him on the field in place of Aaron Rodgers.
Hard to do with back-to-back MVP Rodgers.
I'm going Desmond Ridder.
Oh.
I'm going Desmond Ridder. Me, this is a great pick your poison because all these guys have some poison in them. Is it poison or is it venom? I don't know. But I know Desmond Ridder was good enough to where when Marcus Mariota struggled, a guy that Art Smith knew very well in Atlanta, there was more of a push and a rush to get to the rookie third-round pick out of Cincinnati. So
and you're right.
I'm going Desmond Ridder.
It's a good spot, too, because he doesn't have to be the guy. It is the situation. He's your quarterback.
Yeah, see,
but
if I'm looking at
Bijan
situation,
Robinson
I'm definitely taking Desmond Ridder.
Well, the good thing about, if you just look at it from their situations, all four of these guys are in the NFC. I mean, if they were in the AFC, they'd be screwed.
Dead meat. You're
right.
But
if I had to pick, just give me the cyanide.
Just give me the Jim Jones
resign.
Kool-Aid is what Davey said.
Just go ahead and resign.
Davey's going to fly to Guyana and drink the Kool-Aid with Jim Jones people instead of take one of these quarterbacks.
There's a lot of love about Jordan Love.
I think
right now.
Ridder is going to be okay. And maybe this is my bias towards Arthur Smith and that offense. But I think with Bijan Robinson now, Kyle Pitts, I think they're young skill players. Drake London are going to help him out enough, and they're going to devise a play-action-heavy offense around the run game where he's going to be successful.
And guys, real quick, with tonight being the start of preseason week 3, pick your poison: NFL preseason or NBA regular season?
Can we tackle this when we come back?
We can.
Because I think it's a really good question.
And there is a beautiful scene in Italy for a couple, or supposed to be, except the groom may not be able to make it there. Davey's got details on that coming up as well. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow rolls on right here across the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Love the studio digs here with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine in Music City. Hot Mike with Huddy Withrow rolls on across the OutKick Network.
Did you know that Sunday is Cinema Day? This is some like unofficial holiday.
Oh, you're celebrating.
Every movie is $4. If you go to the movie theater on Sunday, $4 tickets.
How much is popcorn and a Coke?
For
That's
every
what I
movie.
Know.
I got this text from a buddy, maybe completely made up, but they went and showed me the receipt of where they booked to go see Barbie, him and his wife, on Sunday for $4.
Davey's going to Regal right now.
Davey needs to get on Tinder and start swiping right on everyone.
You guys
and
just want me
taking them
to
movies.
get catfish. That's what I'm working on. What you make it? You want actual dates or the catfish? We gotta figure this out.
Davey needs to find the shortest movie out and offer to take all of his dates to those movies for $4 a piece. And just one after the other, he just escorts them out to their car and then goes right back to the entrance of the movie theater and then welcomes the next date. And he watches the same thing over and over again.
You guys ever like go to a 7 o'clock, whatever the showtime would be in high school or early college, and then you just like jump to the next one at like 9:15?
Oh, absolutely. The double feature?
Yeah, but with no one really noticing.
Oh, yeah, no, we would do that a lot. I did that like through college. I remember watching 3 movies
it wasn't cinema
on a
day.
Saturday at one point.
Every day was cinema day if it was the double feature.
I only did it once, and it was because they wouldn't let me go to the movie I wanted to see. I was 17, and
go see Scream.
I'm trying to think of what it was. It might have been like The Hangover 2.
Oh, okay.
And
wait, that would be more our era there, Hutton.
Yeah, that's the one I was trying to get into
with Davey.
So yeah,
I
after
remember
finishing, I think I had to go watch like a Pirates of the Caribbean film. Then once that was done, I just went into the next showing of The Hangover 2.
I remember in like 2005. I mean, I'm in my 20s at this point, and I paid for No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
I'll tell you, this is
Great film.
This is maybe one of the more interesting double features of all time. Paid for No Country for Old Men, stayed with a male friend, not a woman, another guy, stayed for Juno.
Oh, wow.
And watched both and enjoyed the hell out of both of them, to be quite honest. Another one we did was Remember the Titans in like 2001. I believe this is correct. Remember the Titans and M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
Oh, that's
on a
another
Saturday
great
out at the same time. I have to go back and make sure those are the two.
It's 2000.
That's a combo
Yeah,
pack
that would have
there.
been right around the same time. This was like freshman year of college, did that. But we did 3 movies in one day at one point, and I forget the 3.
And
let us know on YouTube your favorite free double feature where you paid for 1 and get 2.
After Remember the Titans, you're like, man, you're juiced. And then you go in and watch The Village, too. And I would still be thinking about Denzel.
I was still thinking about Denzel's speeches.
Yeah.
While also being worked up at what the hell was going on in the village, like everyone else was. What is happening here? I was very nervous. It helped my anxiety watching the village the whole time.
Davey, you asked us a question of what we would rather watch, preseason or regular season in different sports.
Yes, preseason NFL or regular season NBA.
This is a slam dunk for you?
I mean,
We're watching. We're watching like guys who won't even be on practice squads currently.
Yeah, it's regular season NBA, but with a caveat for me.
Yeah.
And the caveat is, depending on the game and the time of the game and how much. Hutton's right about the 4-minute rule. Like the last 4 minutes of an NBA regular season game, it's good. It's competitive.
If it's within 12 points,
that's when they're going hard, and that's when it's fun to watch at the end of a regular season game. So that outweighs anything that happens in the preseason. So I'm definitely going NBA regular season, but there is a part of it that makes you more annoyed watching it and the lack of effort at times, knowing that it's regular season and not preseason.
But at
least your mind can be at ease knowing that the NFL is in the preseason and the games don't really count as you're watching it.
Well, what
gives you a little more peace.
But at least I'm watching LeBron or Steph Curry in the regular season do that and not Kyle Allen at quarterback.
Unless they're under load management. Then you won't see them.
I know you got to look at this at the entirety of, the preseason as a whole, the NBA regular season as a whole. But what sparked this was watching the Commanders-Ravens game the other night.
Well, if I'm guaranteed that.
I'd rather watch that game than most NBA regular season games, but not. That was very much the outlier.
Yeah, but
that also falls under the NBA final 4-minute rule because I tuned in with about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Everyone was, tweeting or posting about the finish to it. Like, is the streak really going to end? So is the marriage going to happen, or does does the engagement end based on what's happening to the one poor guy? And
I have no clue what you guys are talking about, so I need a recap here.
So this story, what had happened, Chad, was there's a couple from Boston. And they were set for their wedding in Italy, destination wedding. Everything's put together. All their family's going to be over there. But their dog, golden retriever named Chicky, decided to get the groom's passport and pretty much shred it. It didn't shred it, but enough to where this passport will not be usable. So this Boston couple, the name of Donato Fratitori and
as Boston as it gets, baby,
Magda Masri. So
I want to do an entire segment of just
Magda
Davey
Masri
pronouncing names from other countries.
It'd be rough, but we'd get through it. So you just got to say it with confidence, And so right now they are pretty much, this became a news story because they're doing whatever they can to get the U.S. government to try to help them expedite the process of getting him a new passport. And as of right now, they've not been able to make that happen. But the plan is that if he is not able to get the passport, he and the dog are just staying back in Boston. The entire bridal party is going to go ahead and go over to Italy, and they will just do the festivities minus the actual ceremony.
Minus the groom.
Yep. So he'd be left behind.
Man, in Tuscany probably. I don't
know.
Kirk
Cameron style.
Wine, you got the.
It's also it's the route. I mean, this is what you should do.
Yeah, well,
if you
everything's
put
booked.
If you put everything down, everybody's
you have
already
travel
on their
insurance,
way out
but
there.
I'm sure your friends and family don't.
What do you think the groom does when he's left behind his own?
They're way too happy in this photo, by the way.
Yeah, that dog's also way too happy.
Well, I mean, he should be. He's being rewarded. Like the owners are smiling. Look at the toy you destroyed.
Making sure I can see both the owners' hands there for a second. I can. That's good. That dog was a little bit too happy. I'm just having fun thinking about what the groom does when he stays back home in Boston when his wedding party is happening without him because he had his passport eaten by his dog.
I guess you go and have the legally marriage license and that's it for the guy, and then there's actually no ceremony.
Yeah, you just go ahead and go to the courthouse, get it done there, and I mean, like that's.
You go to Italy, you've got the, who knows? Maybe they've got it doesn't have to be. I'm envisioning like Tuscany or something. Maybe it's actually like a cathedral or something.
I officiated a wedding.
Then you're really missing out.
I officiated a wedding without being ordained, and so the couple went before the wedding to the courthouse and made sure they had everything taken care of there, and then I was able to just do my thing, and it went well. So
I love it.
You were not ordained?
No. They were already technically married. No one else knew that at the time.
It's not hard to be ordained for this. Chad knows. I've got a buddy, Alex, who I forgot. I think he sent me this a milestone we're celebrating. It's now been 10 years. They get this in the email. Alexander, it's now been 10 years since you officially became an ordained minister We raise a virtual glass to this exciting occasion, and he paid like $10, and it's credentials of ministry, and it's dated, official seal. He can be he's an ordained minister. He could marry someone, and Davey could not.
My buddy Jake got married almost 10 years ago, this next fall in 2014, and our buddy Jim Brown, not the RIP Jim Brown,
Speaking
of the
of
Cleveland
Italy.
Browns. Who now lives in Italy, my buddy Jim Brown. He married them, and I think it took him like a week to get ordained online to be able to be the officiant of the wedding. And he was the officiant of their wedding. Officiant? Either way, he married them.
I think he crushed it.
He did a good job. I was surprised. We all thought he would crash and burn, but he did very well.
Davey, by the way, what would you prefer that if you're engaged, the fiance take the entire wedding party and just go have a blast?
No, but I'm kind of vindictive and jealous of stuff that I don't get to participate in like that.
You would go on a cruise.
Go see Creed, yeah.
I would demand
you get married there.
I still haven't found out if I need the passport to go on the Creed cruise, but that's another story.
I would demand reciprocity if I were the groom. Some sort of arrangement that I'm going to Europe with my friends at some point, or we're doing this trip now since I can't go on this one.
I will say, I mean, if there's no way you're getting a refund for any of this, then yeah, go on the trip.
Well, I do think the couple would have travel insurance. I don't know if those that are just flying over that have, the hotel stay or whatever, I don't know if they would. They should absolutely keep it.
I also think people that have destination weddings are just, unless there's only going to be like 4 people, are just bad people in general. Because you're making people spend thousands and thousands of dollars.
Hey,
that's fair, unless you're marrying into money, and then you.
And yeah, unless they're comping everybody, and they're like, "Hey, we got your cross Atlantic flight planned."
Boys, we've got a trade update with a quarterback.
Oh,
not the one you're expecting. This from Tom Pelissero just now. The Browns are sending quarterback Josh Dobbs and a 2024 7th-round pick to the Cardinals for a 2024 5th-round pick. Not a bad deal. Arizona has yet to name a starting quarterback.
Oh, it's bad.
And now Dobbs is in the mix.
Well, here's
to be the starting
connection.
quarterback in Arizona.
I mentioned Arizona because that is awful. And while I pull it up, I'll say Monty Austinfort's the new general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. They went out and signed Joshua Dobbs here in Nashville. He was the assistant general manager to John Robinson a year ago here. They signed Josh Dobbs, and on 4 days' notice, he started over Malik Willis, who was in for Ryan Tannehill.
And did pretty well, considering the circumstances.
He actually was able to throw the football.
Yeah.
When I say that, they attempted 16 passes with Willis on average. They attempted 30 passes in Dobbs' first game when he arrived on a Wednesday and played on a Sunday.
Now, keep this in mind, too. This from Ari Mirov. Despite announcing Kellen Mond was waived, the Browns never officially processed the move. Mond is still on the roster, and the current plan is for Cleveland to keep him with the news that Josh Dobbs is now being moved to Arizona. So Kellen Mond reportedly waived, but the paperwork did not go through. So they trade away Josh Dobbs, and now they'll retain Kellen Mond in Cleveland.
They'd still have Dorian Green-Thompson. Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yes. From UCLA.
By the way, Colt McCoy, Clayton Tune, and David Blau.
David Blau.
Those are the 3 options right now. Jeff Driscoll's there, too. I should throw that in there.
Jeff Driscoll is still playing?
He is the 5th-string quarterback if you want to count Kyler Murray on the depth chart.
I mean, I'd like to watch a docuseries just based on this quarterback race.
What are they giving up?
A 5th-round pick. Arizona is.
So
Dobbs is moving for him in a 7th-round pick.
Just hypothetical. They are trading a 5th-round pick for Dobbs and a 7th. What do you think their offer was for Trey Lance? Surely they would call about Trey Lance. It's in the same division.
But what if you're just trying to lose?
Yeah.
Then you have the quarterbacks to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, David Blau could lose every game, too. That's what they could be. Monty Austinfort's like,
Clayton Tune he was rumored to be the starter. He's the
guys. Jeff Driscoll could lose these games just as good as David Blau.
He is a rookie 5th-round pick, and they just traded their future 5th-round pick for Dobbs.
Now, here's what it is. Here's the theory, guys. So Dobbs, as we know, is one of the smartest quarterbacks that there is out there. Monty wanted him on the roster for when they tank. Here's what's going to happen. The Texans also going to suck this year, so they're going to get Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. Number 2 overall pick is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., and so then they have Dobbs already on the roster to help mentor Caleb Williams whenever he comes into the program.
There it is. Great locker room guy, Josh Dobbs. He'll be the mentor for Caleb Williams. That makes perfect sense. They're really going for it, though.
Chess, not checkers.
Hey, good opportunity for Josh Dobbs to possibly win a starting job with a really bad team. He, too, could go 0-17.
He arrives 5 days before the final cut.
Amazing.
He's got more time, though, before the final cut, before his first career start in the NFL, which was here in Nashville a year ago. Back at it tomorrow. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock Eastern. I hope you'll join us on Friday.